Here we are. Our first person to join Tabletop Vibes. How's it going, buddy? How are things? Man, oh man. What a day. This is exciting. We are at $125,000 on our campaign. I gotta tell you, I'm just ecstatic. And I thought tonight I'll do a live probably for, I don't know, we'll go see how it goes, maybe 30 minutes, maybe longer if people want to chat. But I thought I'd take tonight just to answer questions, talk about the campaign, share learnings, talk about content, which Adam, I know that you do content, and kind of get into it and get people's thoughts and hear what they want to talk about. Man, this has been quite a ride. It's been a solid 4 weeks of me pretty much turning the computer off at midnight every night. And anybody who does a campaign understands this, that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of ups and downs. You have that kind of emotional roller coaster. People jumping into your campaign, people jumping out, and doing everything you can just to kind of hang on to that bucking bronco, right? And that's the game, right? That's the Kickstarter game. So certainly, I got to be pleased with where we landed. It's been awesome, and this campaign has been, I think, the best campaign we've ever had, and I can't complain about anything. This has been just it has played out kind of how we've planned it. I guess the best way I could say it. And the math, and I always say on the podcast, the math is the math. And certainly is true, because we're literally landing exactly where the math said we would after the first day. And I think the learning here is that when we do future campaigns, or we have, if we're giving advice to other people, there's a lot of things that we can kind of map out. And you always have the variability that's going to come with any campaign you do, but there's certain things you can do to ensure a certain result. And I think that that is all definitely played out on this campaign. So it's been exciting. I'm going to go through the campaign page. If people join in, great. If not, I'm fine with just talking to camera. That's totally cool. I've got an hour to burn, so we're going to burn it. Either that or to stare at my screen watching the tickers. So I think we're going to do this live just for my own sanity. All right, here we go. All right, Cities of Venus. We have this campaign is currently at $126,000. I want to thank all the backers. Clearly, this is going to end. I think we're probably going to have 1,200 backers by the time we're done. I think that's a fair assumption. I also think that the final funding, although we would love to be at 100,000 US to put us in kind of that six-figure club, we're probably going to end up, I'm thinking, just the way the numbers looking now, probably around 132. We're going to come just shy of that. You never know. I might be pleasantly surprised. This campaign physically ends on at noon tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time. So we still do have the evening rally. There's going to be some pledges coming in over the next 2 hours. Then we have a bit of a break. Then coming into European time, people are waking up in the morning. We'll probably get another kind of wave throughout the night. So around kind of like 2, 3 in the morning. And then I think we'll get kind of some people jumping in at the last couple hours tomorrow. So it's a nail biter for sure. But my gosh, yeah, this is cool. I had a lunch with a buddy today who I hadn't seen in about a year, and we're talking about the campaign, and it was just a good reminder of what we've been able to achieve on this campaign. So 17 hours to go. Let's get into it. Cities of Venus. This game is plays 1 to 6 players, depending on the version you have. It's 1 to 4 player or 1 to 6. And the story of this is essentially it's the year 2222, and the people of Earth have been sending resources to try and establish these colonies. Hey, how's it going? We got a few people in here. We got Shangy Girl. How's it going? And we got Abby. How's it going, Abby? Abby Simps, good to see you. Better Half Reviews, thanks for joining. Let's talk in Cities of Venus. Super excited about the campaign, which is ending in 17 hours. All right, so let's get into it. Years 2222, and the people of Earth have established their floating city-states in the clouds of Venus to provide aid. Earth periodically sends immigrants and city upgrades in the form of cloud drops. However, a catastrophe has occurred on Earth, cutting off communication with Venus. No one knows when the last drop from Earth will come. As one of these cities' governors, you must compete against the other players to establish dominance for your city's survival, strategically grow and upgrade your city, deploy your scientists to the International Innovation Station, and prepare for the inevitable hazardous events. And mine the surface for priceless Venite minerals. You must make the most of every cloud drop. The next one might be the last. So that's kind of the synopsis of the game. It is a blast to play. It's a medium. We call it like kind of a medium light, depending on who's playing the game. We've had some heavier gamers say that they find it on the lighter side. We've had some lighter gamers finding it on the heavy side. So I think we're kind of in the sweet spot in terms of our explanation. Why back now? Because I'm just a dude in my basement. This is something that's a passion project. It's not a full-time job. It's just a side hustle like many of us in this industry. And you're supporting a small publisher. And I think that if there's anything you're going to put your money behind, I think the small publishers are the ones that kind of deserve it, quite frankly, because we're the ones that are grinding it out with 1 to 4 people working on the project. You know, we're not large companies. We don't have endless resources. It's really the thing that we bootstrap and do ourselves and kind of crank out. Second to that is you're getting exclusive content. So these games will only be available in these formats. If you're buying it on Kickstarter. If you're not buying it on Kickstarter, you can't get these editions. We will have a retail edition come later on at a later date. We're talking to some localization partners. But these will be stripped down. They won't come with a good majority of the premium components that are in this game. Won't even be included. So how you play this game? A lot of simultaneous play. That's what's really exciting about this, is that you can get through a game with 4 players in an hour, no problem. And that's because there's not really any downtime. There's nobody sitting and waiting for someone else's turn. Everybody is working simultaneously, trying to build their tableau. It starts off with a drop. These are resources that are coming from Earth. They are either immigration upgrades for your board, or they are mechanical upgrades to physically plug into your city and make your city do some amazing stuff. When you flip these cards over, you look, do a quick little scan to see, do any of them have these caution symbols? And if they do, you have to resolve events, and you resolve the number of events per the number of symbols you see. But we cap that at the phase you're in, so you're not completely annihilating people in the first round. After that, everyone erodes their shields. You have the City Clouds of Venus are constantly chipping away at your shields. So you have to lose a person from your shields. So it's important for you to keep upkeeping your shields and adding population to it. Then you get to the step which is population growth. This is taking, quite frankly, just you look at your food department, you're looking at your water air department, whichever department has the lowest population represents your population growth. So in this case, you see that there's 4 people in food, there's 3 in air and water. Population grows by 3. Innovation, you can at any point deploy people to your innovation station if you have them to deploy to a maximum of 2 per deployment. Once you have 8 people on the International Innovation Station, you can cash those immediately in and collect a premium card from the market. And the innovation market gives you cards, allow you to do things that the other cards don't do from the drops. Side little note I'll make is that we actually just announced today that we're doing a dual layer mini player board, which look super awesome. Then we get into city actions. This is equipping and your immigration and mining. So in this phase, this is when you're taking maybe cancers you've reserved in other rounds that then you can finally afford to pay for. You pay and install them into your board. It's also where you can buy VNaughts, right? So you pay your 4 mineral points to buy a VNaught and get a catch-up mechanism. This is also where you would do your mining, so you can burn a resource from your mining department to mine. And then lastly, this is where a lot of the upgrade cards, their actions take place. Like for instance, we have a card that allows you to move VNaughts between your different departments. And that card, you would basically activate that card during your city action phase. Claiming a canister, at this point, you survey what you have in front of you, and you decide which canister you want to grab. This is the one point that actually goes in player turn order. So, if I'm the first player, the next round will move to the next person in clockwise around. And you pay the cost on the card, and you take that card and you either activate it if it's immigration, or you install it into your board right away. Now, in this case, if you can't afford this card, you can reserve it, right? You put that card in your holding bay, and at a later round, in step 5, you can pay those resources to then equip it at that point. It's going to cost you 1 additional mechanic to do that. Finally, the end game is when the Earth card comes up. This is randomly shuffled into the last third of the deck, and when this card comes up, that signifies the end of the game. You play the last round out, and then you count up your points. Your points are essentially a combination of the victory points that were on the cards. You get 1 victory point for every 4 mineral points you've mined, and you also get a victory point for every 2 VNaughts you have on your station. Now there's also bonus points. So if you're the person who has the most populous city, you get 2 bonus points for that. If you're the person with the most mineral points, you also get 2 bonus points for that. Some exciting things we had come during our campaign as we did these reveals that we paced throughout the campaign. This was done to keep the conversation up. The first one was, quite frankly, a solo mode that we knew there was a lot of demand for. So we announced that we're doing the solo mode. This has been designed already. We have Joe Slack, who's a prolific game designer. He's putting the final touches on this. He did Relics Rajalahara, which is a great solo game that did very well. And we're optimizing his talents just to put the final touches on that version of the game. It's actually, quite frankly, a prequel even to like 20 years before the multiplayer game. So in this case, the scenario is there's been a catastrophe, maybe a piece of satellite hits the station, knocked out pretty much the entire population except for you. There's 1 person left, and you have to then rebuild the station and try to keep it going while you wait for help to arrive from Earth. So it's mechanically very similar to the multiplayer game, but it does have a win-lose condition that if you can't, you can lose. Basically, if you crash the ship, then you're done. We also announced a score-keeping web app. This is a digital app that allows you to keep score very easily. You just type in all of the things that you've collected throughout the game, and then it spits out an answer at the bottom as to who won the game. Then we get into ink washed minis. Ink washed minis, these are just make the table presence look that much nicer for people who don't paint minis. Now, you can still paint these if you want, but for those of us like myself who don't paint minis, it still makes them look really cool on the table. So we're really happy with that. And then today we just announced dual layer mini player boards. And these boards, essentially the original ones were, I'm gonna go on my camera here. Let's see here. Boom, there we are. These guys right here. These were our original mini player boards, the International Innovation Stations. We just announced today that these have been upgraded. So now every game is going to come with dual layer mini boards. They'll actually have cutouts where you can actually place the little meeples along with the counter. So you can count the 8, and then on the 8th one, shows a light bulb to signify that you've unlocked an innovation. So that is super cool. And a lot of people have been very happy to see that too. So we're very, very excited. We do have one more thing we're going to announce when the campaign is done. I had someone put in the comments today, and I'll respond soon, saying, well, why would you have something that's not available during the campaign? Quite frankly, it's incentives, right? There's incentives that you have to build incentives into your campaign for your campaigns to be successful. The first one we had was a day 1 bonus for people that kind of locked in their pledge early. Again, yes, it's kind of fear of missing out, but you need it because it drives the algorithms. And if you don't get a high day 1 pledge level, then it's going to impact everything else that you do. So it's very, very important that you get the, hey, David, how's it going? The second thing that we have coming is this little bonus was designed to, quite frankly, encourage people to not wait to the pledge manager to upgrade their pledge, but to upgrade their pledge now, because we need the help now. We need to get that number up now. And because it helps, again, with the momentum and, just the pledges and everything coming in. So feel free to ask any questions. Board Game Planet as well. If you guys have any questions at all, we're talking about Cities of Venus, but we'll talk about literally anything you want about board games. I'm more than happy to help and discuss, talk shop, quite frankly. We're going deep in behind the curtain here, talking about the campaign. It's going to end now in like 15 hours. And I'm sharing my learnings. So the one learning I'm talking about right now is, like, someone asked, well, why do you have this incentive that you're going to announce after the campaign's done? And that's purely try to get people to bump those pledges from $1 up to a full pledge, right? That helps us tremendously with not only keeping the momentum going on the pledge numbers and so forth, but also helps me with my forecasting, because I got to start talking to the factory about, okay, how many copies do we need to make? What's the ratio between 4-player games and 6-player games? Because they're going to be different boxes, right? The 6-player game is going to be a bigger box because there's more stuff in there. So to plan all this out, I really need these numbers. So it's a way to encourage people to do that. So that's why we did it. Some people like it. Some people hate it. Don't hate the player, hate the game. I guess is the way I can say it. So from there, so let me just bounce back to the page. So we've got what's in the box. So this game has got a ton of premium components. Got these cool quad layer boards where things are plugging in left, right, and center. We actually have these little windows that you can see, the peekaboo windows that show like what's on the card as you go in there, so you can kind of see what the different powers are activated. We're adding 2 more of these, one for the food and air, which currently doesn't have a window, and likewise on the water air department, we're going to add a window there. We have a ton of cards coming. We got more variety we're building into, so our card count is still going to be 86 Cloud Drop cards. But we do have some duplicates in there right now for our demo copies. We're going to add a lot more variety in there. That was one thing that we had planned all along, and the reviewers, quite frankly, said, we love this, but we want more. More is coming. Same with event cards, same with innovation cards. And quite frankly, we had put out to the audience, the backers, saying, hey, if you have any cool ideas, throw them our way. And we'd love to give you name drops in our book. And anybody that backs the campaign that comments with an idea, quite frankly, even if we don't use the idea, we're probably still going to give a name drop in our book just for being awesome and contributing during the campaign. Comes with V-Knots, tons of V-Knot meeples, 200, which is a crap load of meeples, 135 acrylic gems, 4 marbled D6 dice, rocket-shaped meeple bowl, 3 resource volcano trays. We've already bought the molds for those, so those are ready to go. Rule book, spot UV in the box, inside lid printing. These are things that we knew we were going to do right from the get-go. Some publishers will hold stuff back, like they'll strip out stuff that you would normally do and then try to give it back to you through financial incentives. We didn't want to do that. We want to have the best game from the beginning. So it wasn't based on hitting a specific target. And everything was priced that way, basically, our targets. The 6-player expansion, this gives you 2 more mining mechs, 24 additional cloud drop cards. These are unique to the 6-player game, 8 event cards, 16 innovation cards, 50 more V-Knot meeples, so 250 altogether. 2 D6 marble dice, 1 resource rocket tray additionally, 3 more volcano trays, 2 more quad layer boards, and 2 more mini IIS player boards. And again, those have been upgraded to dual layer boards as of this morning. If you compare these 2 pledge levels, there is 110 components between the 2. That's the difference between the 2, which is just awesome. First player marker mini, this is our add-on. Many people are really excited about this. This is also going to be ink washed, which we announced earlier, and they just look super cool, and it's just an awesome thing to add to the game. Very appreciative of all the content creators we've had in this. We've got an English how to play video, a French how to play video, an Italian how to play video. I got a preview quasi how to play a Portuguese one that was just done yesterday as well, that we'll be able to offer up for people to watch in addition to these. Lots of reviews and previews from different content creators. They've all been very, very generous with their time. We didn't pay any of these people. So I just want to be clear with that we only paid one person, which was Genders, because we wanted to have a very slick how to play a video that we could then give to the other reviewers so they had something to actually physically watch, because my learning from prior campaigns is people often don't read. So I want to have a video for them to look at before they produce their content. But everyone else is just, here's a copy of the game, and we get the feedback that we get. And we got a lot of great feedback. Had the pleasure of being on a couple podcasts as well. We're profiled on the Gamecasters as well as Level Up. Level Up actually physically even had me on their podcast, which is cool. Likewise, I had them on my podcast. The team, again, kudos to Adam, my design partner and brother. Daniel Kuna, who did the artwork and is going to be doing a lot more artwork in the coming month. Mackie, who did all the graphical frames around the cards and so forth. Security officer Stephen Hill, he's a rule scrubber. He's also the designer of Architects of Venus, which is our prequel that we'll be playtesting at the upcoming Toronto Protospiel in June. And then Caitlin Summers, she did our Kickstarter page, did a great job. I can't give BackerKit enough credit. These guys did amazing work on this campaign. They truly are great allies and partners to work with. How does all of that work? Do you reach out to the content creators or do they reach out to you? That's an excellent question, David. I'm going to go face to camera here. Hang on a second. Boom. There I am. All right. This is something that, and so I'm going to give you a few moments on this one, because this one it's something that I've been doing a lot of experimentation with over the past couple of campaigns. So let me just preempt this with, back when I did Nutty Squirrels of the Oakwood Forest, we had paid for preview videos. So I'd reached out to some select content creators. There was like Our Family Plays Game, Mick and Starla, love them. We Game Together with Ellen and Randy, again, awesome couple. And we had a couple other ones that we had done. And we paid for those preview videos. And that cost us roughly, I think I spent about $2,200 US across all their different fees. And those same content creators, because they'll have much bigger platforms now, that would easily be like $3,500 today to have the same people I did on Nutty Squirrels do preview videos for me right now. When we did Hamsters versus Hippos, I was talking to the factory and I said to the factory, look, and I was changing factories at the time. And I said to the factory, I'll give you this job, but you have to agree to give me 100 prototype copies. I'll pay for them, right? I know I'm going to pay a lot, but you just have to agree to make them, because some manufacturers won't even make less than 1,000 copies, right? So I said, guys, you have to make 100 preview copies. And what I'm going to do and they did, they agreed to that. And it cost me roughly $2,500 to do that US. And I had 100, as close as you can get to the final game, preview or reviewer copies made of Hamsters vs. Hippos. So to answer your question, I then went on a Facebook group, which is Reviewers and Media. Huge group. All the different content creators are on there. And it's basically where all those content creators look for people who are looking to hire. And I posted on there, and I also had James Freeman, who helped me on that campaign because he was one of the designers on the game, reach out to people, and he just went through his Rolodex and said, hey, we have this game. We're going to send you a free copy. But we're not paying for any preview videos. These are reviews, all right? And we were able to get 70 that I sent out for that campaign. And of the 70, 20 people just took the game and walked. So gave us nothing in return. It's par for the course, I guess. I got those names documented, so for sure they weren't getting a second game from us. And then of the 50 that gave us content, 30 glowing reviews, 10 kind of neutral, 10 that were neutral but very critical in their feedback. So saying, here's what I really love, but then here's what I really hated. It's tough to put that on a Kickstarter campaign page because usually people will not listen to the entire video in context and they'll just kind of listen to the bad stuff and then jump out. So at the end of the day, you need these to help sell games, right? So I went through those 50, and of those 50, we used like 40 of them. So we had more content than we needed. And these were videos, these were Instagram things and so forth. So from that moment on, I said, this is the way we're going to go forward. And the onus is on me to make a good game. And the risk you run is people may not like your game. And I mean, even Cities of Venus, there was at least 2 reviewers that hated it. And there's only 2, which is a lot less we've had on other games. And what I've learned is that it's all about the brief up front and setting expectations. And I still need to get better at that, man. Every one of these, I'm still learning, right? I'm still trying to say, oh gosh, I should have done that differently. And certainly, even on Cities of Venus, I should have briefed better. So the two people that hated it, they don't like light, like medium light games. They like heavier, deeper games. So they looked at it and they saw on the table and it looked very robust. And they're like, oh my God, this looks like a real beefy, meaty game. And, they hadn't seen that, we had other games that were gateway type games that, an hour or less in terms of playtime. And so the fit just wasn't there. We made the wrong fit with those people. What's very nice of them is that they were kind enough to say, look, I really didn't like this game. And to be fair to you, I probably shouldn't do a review because I'm going to come in pretty jaded. And I know your job is to basically profile your game. For those people, I say thank you so much. I appreciate that because I'd rather that than you go and just crap on my game and send it out to 5,000 people. So we took those copies and they're very generous to let me send them on to other people. So I take that on me because I know at least one of them I could have been, if I had to brief them better for sure that, we just wouldn't have sent them. They would have realized they weren't a fit for the copy and they wouldn't have watched the game or taken the game. So you're saying that has to be hard giving out how many games not even getting any feedback. Yeah, it sucks. And Adam, my co-designer, just joined. Welcome, Adam. We're just riffing and talking shop right now with some people in the lobby here. Yeah, it is. It was harder on the first game. The first time something happens where you're not expecting it, that's when it stings. The games after that, I thought, okay, what could I have done differently, right? And I try to do this in everything I do. Is like, okay, I'm not going to blame the person. I'm not going to blame that person. I'm going to blame myself. What did I do wrong? And is there anything I could have done differently? Could I have followed up better? Could I have briefed better? Could I have had that upfront conversation to say, okay, what kind of content are you looking to do? Looking at their audience. I had this, and we got in. I mean, there was a mini debate that happened on this game in the reviewer thing where someone's like, "Whoa, wait a second, how are you choosing who gets a game? Is it all about the audience numbers?" And my answer was, well, no, it's not all about the audience numbers. I had an extra copy in the States just recently, and I ended up giving to somebody with a smaller audience, but they were doing it in Vietnamese, and I didn't have that language covered. Now I don't think they've done the video yet. I gotta still follow up. I haven't seen it, but it was a different market, right? Whereas as the some of these other people have larger audiences, if there's a case where I have to choose, where I've got two people who are creating kind of the same content, and they both have YouTube channels, and one has 5,000 viewers and one has 100. Again, it's still a business, right? Of course, I'm going to go with the person that has the 5,000. But that isn't, when you have extra copies, you want to go with the people you think are going to that can add the most to what you're trying to put out there, right? And for me I wanted content from different angles, right? At first, I wanted to make sure I had some written reviews. So I want to have written reviews, Instagram reviews, and video reviews. Third wave, by the time I got to the third wave of prototypes where I still had some copies to send out, I have enough. I have the written reviews. I don't need any more written reviews. So I'm going to now emphasize and kind of funnel those now towards people that are, video creators, for instance. Frisky, welcome. We're just talking shop, board games. We have a campaign right now, which is Cities of Venus. We're at 100 and I don't even know what the number is now, 126,000, somewhere around there. We've got about 17 hours left. And we're just talking shop, riffing, talking about games. Have any questions, throw it in the comments, and love to answer any questions that I have. David saying, you may not be able to answer, is there a specific content creator who brought in the most backers? It's a great question. I'm sorry if I'm kind of stumbling while I'm trying to read, because the way my software kind of drops it, it literally cuts the words into fragments, so I'm trying to wrap the word as I read it. That's an excellent question. Is there a content creator that brought in the most backers? I I don't have an answer to that, and it's not because I'm being coy. What you can do is you can that's funny. You have like tag, so you have tagging on the back end, right, of Kickstarter. So Kickstarter allows you to say, here's a link for Kickstarter that you can have somebody share, and then it'll add a string of code on the end where you can actually sign it to something. So I've got one I've assigned to the Board Game Binge. So anytime I do a Post and Board Game Binge podcast Facebook group, the private group, I've got that tag. So I know if there's a pledge that comes in from there, Kickstarter will track it. Now, what it doesn't track is if somebody saw that there and just goes to Kickstarter themselves and looks up the game. But if somebody clicks the link straight there. So what I didn't do for the content creators, I created one tag that just says content creators and sent out to all the content creators. So, and then typically what I find with content creators, and I found this in most of the campaigns I've run, rarely is there, hey, Ash and Misty, we're just talking shop, board games, Kickstarter, ask any questions you have. I'm an open book. For the most part, when a content creator is, talking about a game, even when they put a link to the Kickstarter campaign, I've rarely seen that track all the way through to say, oh, that content creator generated that actual pledge. It just rarely happens. It's I think most people, when they see on the video, they'll watch as much of the videos to convince them that yes, I'm in or out. Then they go over to Kickstarter themselves and look for the game. I think that's just kind of how it happens. But if I was to say which content creators had big audiences on this campaign, certainly Board Game Brigade. He had a great audience. Here's how I would judge it. I would judge it by the comments, right? So people that are watching, the video, and then all the content creators look at all their videos that they do on Cities of Venus, obviously, and I look at all the comments of, okay, are people kind of interacting, right, asking questions, saying, oh my god, I want back, this looks so awesome. Board Game Brigade was one of those where there was a lot of good comments going back and forth. He's got a big audience too. I did see the French one, L'École de Jeu, here in it's a channel for France, but he runs it out of Montreal, Canada, which is kind of funny. I saw a lot of comments on that one too, which was really cool. I would say Tabletop Tolson, another good one. A lot of comments there. And Genders Gaming, man, he's got a good audience. He's just got such a cool vibe about him. He really does. And he's now on Swedish television with his content, right? Some local television stations had him do like a board game segment. He's just a cool dude, and he's just got a great positive vibe about him. Just a super great guy. So I see sometimes some content creators are kind of infectious in their personalities, and those ones I think probably make a difference. I look at content differently than probably most. I don't really look at content as I need to put it on their channel to drive people to my page, because I really don't think that's where most traffic comes from. From the data, most traffic comes from Meta, right? So Meta ads. So Facebook and Instagram, pre-campaign ads, post-campaign ads. That is like 90% of your traffic. And I would say probably that's like 50% of your traffic. Then 40% of your traffic is people finding you organically on Kickstarter. Kickstarter will bring and serve people to your campaign. And I think the number is something like for every 6 you bring in, Kickstarter will bring in 4. And then like 10%, all those tags represents like 10% of the pledges coming in. But the way I look at content is more as a tool on my Kickstarter page, right? So when somebody goes to the page and they're scrolling down, the pages you go to where there's really no content, or they have maybe one person doing a video, you look at it, you're like, I don't know, maybe is this a big campaign, is it not? And sometimes you might jump out. But when you go to a page and you see a whole bunch of content creators, right? Like I think there's a dozen or so on our page alone. And then on top of that, there's another like 30 that we just have quotes from, right? Because we couldn't fit them all on our page. I think the perception that gives when somebody's kind of crawling through your, through your page, is that, okay, this is there's something special here. There's a lot of people looking at it. There's a lot of People, spending time and kind of, investigating this. So from my perspective, that's how I use it. And I love all the comments, David. Thank you so much. It's always great when people are actually engaging and throwing questions. Guys, I know there's other people in the feed here. Send me your questions. I'll answer anything. I don't care. Who cares? Anything to do with board games. So David's saying you can have the best equipment with no personality and it will show in the engagement. Absolutely. There's a lot of channels where people have really good production value and very little audience. And I think it's because they don't necessarily know how to get, themselves out there and how to promote themselves. And I've seen the flip side. I've seen some that look like they're done with an iPhone camera and they've got huge audiences. Mainly those ones are the ones from other countries, right? So content creators from other countries. David saying, love to make it when he can, loves to learn in this hobby industry. And yeah, I hope you do put a game out sometime. And for sure, message me. We'll hop on a Zoom, and if you need to pick my brain, I am here. I am more than happy to pay forward any learnings I have. I've been very fortunate with the people that I've reached out to over the past several years that have been very kind with their time and helped me right with my journey. I want to give, first shout out I would give would be Richard McRae from Analog Game Studios. He's based out of Canada here. He's one of the most generous people ever, right? And it's kind of like co-opetition. We're kind of competitors. We're kind of in the same genre of games. But I'm always saying, hey, Rich, do you want to come on the podcast and talk about your next title? And him and I usually a couple of times a year will just hop on a Zoom call and just chat and share learnings. And that's what's really cool about this industry. Daniel Radcliffe, great guy, Board Game Co. I know he's over at GameFound now, which is kind of cool. But I did a podcast episode with him, and we talked for an hour afterwards, and he was so kind with his time, and he gave me a lot of feedback just on proper equipment and so forth. Jamie Stagmeyer, I've had him on the podcast 3 times. Every time he's more than willing to spend a few minutes afterwards just giving some advice. And, he's in a position now, he doesn't ever have to do a podcast ever again. But he still does. And I listen to other podcasts, he'll go on other people's podcasts. He's constantly doing weekly video blogs, answering questions like this, just trying to put it out there and try to help. And, I think this industry, from what I see, is the people that seem to grow in success are those that do this, right? That say, hey, I will help anybody that wants help. I will help anybody that needs, needs advice. I'll do whatever I can. I can't even count how many times I've connected people with other content creators, translators, manufacturers. Just last week, again, I did another introduction with a colleague that was doing a card game, and right now their math is not great, I would say, for their campaign. It's not in their favor for their campaign, from what I can see. They haven't launched their campaign, but just a pre-campaign stuff. I was trying to provide some advice there, and the one thing I was saying is you got to get the cost. You got to get your cost of your game down. Your game cost is too high, which is forcing your main goal to be too high, which now is going to make your first day harder to hit if you hit it at all, which is going to impact your algorithms, which is going to cook the rest of your campaign. So I put them in contact with Skygame. Skygame will do 500 copies of a card game, right? So you think about that. All these companies that will do board game manufacturing, most of them are, even you look at Long Pack, are 1,500 games. Some will do 1,000. Skygame will go as low as 500. You're going to pay a premium for that, but still on aggregate, it's going to be a smaller nut than if you're doing 1,000 games, right? So it helps you get that kind of initial target down. David's saying, what is the one piece of advice you had to learn the hard way? We only have an hour, man. There is so much that I had to learn the hard way. That's a good one. Let me just think about this. There's one thing that trumps everything, quite frankly, and it is audience. is 100% audience. You have to build an audience. And no matter how shy you are, no matter how, just going to read the notes that Dave was saying here. He said that could be a podcast on its own. It could be. And quite frankly, I've done an episode after 2 campaigns ago. I did an entire episode just with my learnings. So I think I might do that again on this one, because this one we're starting to kind of really hone in on the formula, right, of how to make it work. But I would say when I started with Thanks But No Thanks, I could not get anybody to give me the time of day on that game. No one cares about your game. That's the hard truth, unfortunately, in this industry. And it's not because they're necessarily trying to be mean or clicky, although there's a lot of clickiness in the industry. Less mean people that there was even 5 years ago. Those people have kind of weeded themselves out. And so I think that there's a very loving industry as a whole. But I had trouble getting people to give me any kind of coverage on that game, period. And I quickly realized, and the saving grace on that campaign, quite frankly, was Bobby Fiorentino from the Board Game Club Facebook group. Super sweet guy. He gave me some he profiled me on his Facebook group, and kind of extended the olive branch, because you could see that I was struggling, and he's like, hey, I want to hear about your game. Let's talk about it. Let's do some episodes on. And he was doing kind of like this, but he was on his Facebook group. And right there, I knew I had to build an audience, and I had to build an audience fast, and had to get that email list up, right? And that's where the math comes in, is you have to get your email list up. And I'll explain why in a second. But what we had to do was, right away, I started just chatting with other publishers and people in the industry, and said, hey, do you mind if I record this on my Facebook page, kind of like Bobby was doing with his board game club? I'm trying to build up a board game Facebook group. And after about 6 of those, where I was recording them, I was talking to a person, and they said, okay, so what time am I going to be on your podcast again? And it kind of dawned on me. I'm like, oh, I guess this is kind of like a podcast. Like I was just doing kind of like video vlogging on my Facebook group. So I went and signed up for Captivate and said, okay, I'm actually going to turn this into a podcast, and took all the audio from those 6 episodes, uploaded them, have the back catalog, and then just started formally creating episodes going forward. And it's evolved over the past 3 years, but the format's pretty straightforward. It's a 30-minute in and out. We're going to talk to somebody in the industry, a publisher, designer, content creator, distributor. I had Long Pack Games CEO and owner was on there. Just anybody to do anything to do with the board game industry. I had them on the podcast, but 30 minutes. So we're not going to chit chat about the weekend, stuff like that. We're going to go in quick into what is your story? How did you get into the industry? What were your motivations? What are some learnings you had along the way? What are some of the hurdles you came across? And then we're going to talk about whatever it is they're working on currently, right? So that's what's in it for them, obviously, to plug their current projects. But it's in and it's out in 30 minutes. So you can literally binge a bunch of these if you're on a road trip, or in the morning on the way to work, or if you're getting ready in the morning, you can listen to a full episode in 30 minutes. And through that was how I had to start building the audience, and then constantly talking to every one of these people. As soon as we were off air, hey, can I take 5-10 more minutes of your time? I got some questions. And I would just pepper them with questions. And that's where the name came from. That's exactly where Board Game Binge name came from. Absolutely. Hafiz Printer. How's it going, buddy? Welcome. Can't wait to see you in a couple weeks at Protospiel. We're just doing some shop talk. Actually, Hafiz, if you have questions, you got some insights, throw them this way, and we'll talk about them on air as well. I'm sure other people could benefit from your questions. Hafiz has got a great game. I can't wait till he launches it. It's a basketball game. It is super awesome. It's probably one of the best sports mechanically sound executions of a sports game that I've played. It's cool. So as I was saying, building that audience was key, and I saw that on Board Game Binge. On Thanks But No Thanks, I couldn't get anybody to give me time of day. As I was starting to build a reputation in the industry over the past 3 years and meeting more and more people, there's a lot of people. Thanks, appreciate to have this. They just congratulate me on the campaign. There's more and more people that want to pay it forward, like I'm trying to do with others, and want to give you a lending hand, especially when you've helped them. right? So I can't count the number of people I've reached out to saying, hey, can I help you? Is there anything I can help you with, right? Hey, do you want to put a post in we got 1,800 member Facebook group. Put a post of your campaign there. I'd love to see it there. I've had people have actually posted their campaigns in my e-blast that I send out on a monthly newsletter. Invite them onto the podcast. I've had people who have microscopic campaigns, and I still had them on the podcast to talk about their story because they still have an important story to tell. And quite frankly, they're going through the mud, right? That's where the learning is when people are going through the mud. And so those are the kind of people that I love having on the podcast as well. So I have a wide range. So why is it important to grow the audience? And I know I'm coming full circle back to this, but I just want to get that off my chest first. The email list that you have, the Math and Crowdfunding Nerds guys, if you go to their website, they've got a tool you can download, and it's a Kickstarter success calculator. And in there, you literally put in, here's the size of my email list. Here's how much marketing dollars I'm going to put behind my campaign in the 4 weeks leading up to my campaign. And it spits out a number at the end saying, here's a range of what you can expect for your funding. Because it's very mathematical. And it works out to roughly like 10 to 15% of your email list will convert into backers. Likewise, you're looking at 10 to 15% of the people that sign up for that pre-notification sign up. And that's why a lot of people really try to get that number as high as possible. 10 to 15% of those people are going to convert into backers. So and there's obviously, it's like a Venn diagram. There's overlap between those two lists. So if you can get those lists as big as possible, you can count on about 15% conversion of that combined list. You can count on for pledges of your campaign. Once you can start doing the math, you can start saying, okay, what kind of objective do I want to have? Right? So if the math is saying I'm only going to do, and I did the math on this other person's campaign the other day. I was talking to this card game they're working on, and the math was not, based on the numbers gave me, their math was they're lucky if they're going to have 100 backers, right? And their objective is based on hitting like 1,000 backers. So, like, I hate to say this, but I mean, they're in for a bit of pain, right? And some people have to just go through it, learn it the hard way. But the math is the math. And once you can get that math going, you can then very specifically focus in on, okay, do I have enough to launch now? Is this enough? And for some people it might be, you know what, hey, the math says I'm going to probably do $20,000 campaign. I'm happy as anything because it's my first campaign. It's small. I want to just get my feet wet. That's fine. Then you launch. If there's other people might say, wow, I've been working on this game for 3 years and it's kind of the big game I've got. And Cities of Venus would be an example of that. This is something we've been working on for 3 years, and all of our other campaigns, the other 5 campaigns have been leading up to this one. If the numbers said you're going to hit 20,000, I would have pushed campaign out. I would not have launched. The math for this campaign going in was $115,000. So we knew, based on the math, we're safely looking at about 115, depending on how it goes in the first day, depending on how it goes throughout the campaign. And again, I'll talk about some of the strategies we use to keep the conversation going. We're safely looking at 115,000. As soon as we finished our day one funding, we're able to calibrate that number. And so you take that number and you say, okay, based on day one, on average, you should take that day one number and you should do about 25% of that in the last 72 hours. And it's roughly, I think, 5.6% in the third last day. Second last day, you should hit about 15% of that number. And, about 7 to 8% of that number. And then about 15% of that number on the very last day. So that math, as soon as we had our day one, we knew, okay, the math is saying we're going to be at about 130,000. Somewhere between 125 to 130,000. And looking at the number we're at right now, the math is pretty close, right? And then you can keep kind of calibrating as you go, right? So I've been running a spreadsheet every day with here's our by day predictions, and then if we're overshooting numbers, it would keep readjusting that number. So as we were getting close to today, we knew more and more that we're probably going to hit around 130 by the time the campaign is done. I really want to hit 136 because that puts me in the six-figure club, US dollars. But I'm happy as a pig in anything right now for where we've landed. And then as you go through, you have to keep the conversation up, because if you don't, people jump ship just as fast as they're jumping in. And Adam, my brother, he's gone through the experience of this now, and he's starting to see the light on this campaign, where there's certain days where it's funny. As fast as people are coming in, you got people jumping off the other side of the boat. And it is gut wrenching. I'm used to it now, so I kind of laugh. But for your first campaign, like, you want to cry. You want to freaking cry. It is brutal. So, yeah, that's kind of why the math is important, and why you need to get that list up as big as you can. The good news is the more campaigns you do, the list just keeps getting bigger and bigger. One way to get that list up, and Hafiz, if you're still in the lobby, I can't tell who's still in the lobby, but I saw you join recently. One of the things that you may want to do is start seeding out meta ads now, like even $5 a day, doing lead generation ads, saying coming soon with a picture of your basketball game. What that's going to do is it's going to start giving you filling that pipeline, right? And it's going to get people starting to sign up for the pre-notification, so you can start trying to get that number as big as possible. Some of the things you might want to do during the campaign is you definitely have to keep the conversation up, right, as you go through, because if you don't, people are going to jump out. So what we did is we spaced out what we called reveals. So definitely did not want to do stretch goals. A lot of people do stretch goals. Personally, I stopped doing that for the past 3 campaigns. And just what I found is the people that really scream for the stretch goals. The one campaign I gave in, so I wasn't going to do stretch goals on hamsters versus hippos, on Nutty Squirrels, the Oakwood Forest. And I had like a handful of people saying, "Oh, where's the stretch goals? What's going on? We need stretch goals." So I put in stretch goals. And then what happened? Those people all jumped ship after I had the stretch goals in there. So for me, it's more important to just stay true to what you have and try not to get distracted by the noise. And the problem with stretch goals is they're usually fake anyways. Like back 10 years ago, if someone was doing a stretch goal, they did that because they were honestly saying, well, we can do this, this, and this, and if we get this much more money, then I can do more. But now, because Kickstarter has become almost like a marketplace or a pre-order system where your game has to go in pretty much polished before you launch, the stretch goals are things that the manufacturers or the publishers are holding back, that they're going to put in anyways, and they're just going to slowly give them to you to try to keep the conversation going. The challenge becomes if they smash their goal on day one, they hit all their stretch goals, and then they have to come up with some other stretch goals to kind of fill in the rest of the time. Likewise, if they are too aggressive on their targets and say if we hit $100,000, we're going to do X, and after day one they're only at like $15,000, probably not hitting $100,000. Now you've got goals that you're planning to do anyways. You have to come up with an excuse. Well, why now am I going to do that? Like, well, I've talked to the manufacturer and we got better savings. Now we can do that. So it's a kind of a tough thing to balance. So as a policy, we got rid of stretch goals altogether. Day one incentive. A lot of manufacturers or a lot of publishers are doing this. That's the fear of missing out. I know Connor McGoey at Inside Up Games, you get your name in the box. That's their day one backers get that. The challenge is some people get the email late and then they miss out and then they're angry, right? So what we do is we try to do like a first day backer. You get the fear of missing out. Hopefully people will, jump in. If they don't, then I often after day one, I'll extend it to 72 hours to capture everybody. So that's something that I do. The other thing that I think is really important is to keep the news going is there's 2 key things we did on this campaign. One was I had created reveals. So these are things that we originally had 3. We only had 3. And what I was going to do is pace these throughout the campaign and say, hey, if you stick around, if you keep talking about the campaign, we've got something really cool we're going to talk about, right? It's not going to impact your game, right? So everyone still gets their game. The best possible game we can give you, we're going to give you out of the gate. But I got some cool stuff we're going to talk about soon. So after the first week, we announced a solo mode. A lot of people are saying, well, why didn't you announce the solo mode on day one? because again, you have that reverse bell curve. We need little mini waves along the campaign. So I needed something that would give us a meaningful bump in the second week to keep our momentum going. And I knew the solo mode would do that because there's a lot of solo players out there. There's literally groups dedicated to solo play. And then we can blast those groups and say, hey, now we have got a solo mode. Are you going to come and join us? The second one we did was an app that allows you to do like a scorekeeping app that we created. It's really cool. You can tabulate your scores really, really quickly. Trying to convince Connor to create one of these for Earth, because Earth has got a pretty beefy score pad, and that they could use a scorekeeping app. I might just create one for him because I personally want one for my game. But that was something we announced. And then ink washed minis. So I made the minis ink washed. And then today, the last one we did, which was added in, was this dual layer mini player boards for the International Innovation Station. That was one that was not planned from the beginning. That was something that, in talking with the factory, again, they go through waves of quoting with them, right? And we had been going back and forth and the costs were creeping up. And while the campaign was running, I was still, fighting with the factory, not fighting with them, but just saying, guys, like, come on, I need better pricing. And so I came and I said, okay, here's what I want to do for these mini player boards. What can you do this for? And the increase in price wasn't that much more that for me, it added enough coolness in terms of the table presence to the game that I just ate it. And hope, fingers crossed, that maybe it'll bring in some pledges that'll cover off the incremental cost. If it doesn't, that's fine. It looks super dope. so we did it anyways. But that was added in. There's one more thing we're going to announce probably at the end of the week after the campaign closes. This is another thing that would not have been possible if it wasn't for, again, a lot of negotiations with the factory. And I can't reveal it yet, but it's pretty cool. And I put that in there as an incentive, quite frankly, for the people who are on the fence with the dollar pledge or just waiting for the pledge manager. And during the pledge manager, at that point, I'll up my pledge. Well, no, if you up your pledge now, we're going to give you a bonus, but we're not going to tell you what the bonus is until after the campaign closes. So it's a little bonus there, a little, again, incentive to get people locked in. All right, David. Oh, you're still here, David. Wow. Is there anything with this campaign you would have changed before launch? Hindsight is 2020. Damn, that's a good question. Welcome, Ryan, by the way. We're talking shop. Just got a Kickstarter that's wrapping up in about 14 hours, and we're just talking about the learnings from it. It's a Cities of Venus campaign running on Kickstarter right now. What's our funding at right now? Let's go over there real quick. We are closing in on 100 and... Are we at 127 yet? 126,888. So we're close to 127,000. Wow. Yeah, that's a... I'm on fire with these questions. Yeah, you are. Keep them coming, man. Keep the questions coming. Hafiz, where's your questions? Damn it. All right. I would say this campaign, what would I do differently? Gosh, this is that. Oh, Endo Girl just showed up. Welcome, Endo Girl. Endo Girl painted these mechs, by the way, and she did a freaking amazing job. Let me grab one of these. This is Endo Girl's paint jobs. Like, I'm a clown when it comes to painting, so thank God I have her, because these would look horrible if I painted them. That's a tough question, David. This is the first campaign where everything's kind of gone exactly as planned. Here's what I would have done differently. And yeah, it does look good. The mech looks amazing. My biggest disappointment, I would say, with this is twofold. One is I think we should have jacked up our advertising spend 2 days earlier. I wish I had spent more in the first 72 hours. And we jacked up the spend today, but we probably should have jacked up the spend even on the weekend a little bit more, just to get that that last hook. The cool thing with BackerKit is they pay with their dollars, and then you reimburse, and then they take it out of kind of out of the winnings. That's one of the great things about going with BackerKit, as opposed to any of the other marketing companies. All of them will do your marketing. They charge you a fee, and you put it on your credit card. BackerKit's the only one that they pay the bill, and then you have to pay them at the end of the campaign from the money you've generated. So that's why it's important to actually make sure you're going to fund, so you actually can give them that money, because if you can't, then you still have to pay. But I wish I had jacked up the advertising dollars. But my biggest regret, I would say, would be probably how much time we burnt on trying to get these player boards just right for the reviewer copies. And we didn't get enough card. I would have wanted more card variety in there, but we ran out of time. We kept running into Chinese New Year. So I've not gotten good at navigating Chinese New Year yet. This has been something that has been the bane of my existence, because it's hit me on 3 campaigns where I just run out of time and things are rushed and you're paying premiums to rush things. So that's probably my biggest miss. I would also say in the brief, although the brief is way better this time than it's been on prior campaigns, we went in calling this a medium weight Euro, because we pulled like the people that play tested and said, what do you think? And they're like, well, Patchwork and Azul and Hafiz, I'll get to your question in a second. Those are light, and this is not light like those, so we call it medium weight. But there was enough reviewers saying, well, you kind of said this is medium, and I'm finding kind of medium light, more welterweight. I should have spent more time really investigating that, and probably polling like some heavier gamers and listening more to them about how to position the weighting. That would have saved us a lot of headaches. And then I've got a Hungry Gamer regret too. I'll talk about that in a second. Hafiz, this is going to be part of a trilogy. Can you give us a sneak peek into the next game? Oh, 100%. I'm going to talk about the entire trilogy, man. Give me like 2 minutes. I'm going to finish the Hungry Gamer one, and then I'm going to tell you the trilogy, because, oh God, I'm so excited. And there's more stuff that's coming tomorrow on this too. And wait till you see what's coming tomorrow. Oh my God. All right. This was a regret. So Hungry Gamer did a review. Super, super thoughtful. Probably one of the most thoughtful reviews that we had. And he went in and he went deep. So he said, here's what I liked about the game. He goes, and here's some of my hangups. And most of his hangups, quite frankly, was around the variety of the cards, which we knew we were coming with. We knew we were coming with more variety. And I even reached out to him and said, hey, we're doing exactly what you're talking about. We just couldn't get it to you for your copy. And he's great. I'm going to pin your comment to the top. At the end of his review, he talked about, kind of in summary, you know what, these guys got something here that if they're making some changes to this game throughout the campaign or adding more variety, this is going to go from a game being, yeah, I could play that game, to, man, that's a game I really want to play. So we had his video start at that point. And my rationale for that, quite frankly, is somebody comes into the campaign. People are used to TikTok where you're literally 5 seconds. Like I'm watching this feed here and I got people bouncing in and out like in 5-second increments, right? So, people's attention span is microscopic. And my worry was that people will listen to the critique before they actually got to really kind of the meat of his review, which was, this has got a lot of potential, It's a really cool theme and blah, 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 blah. So I had the video start there on our Kickstarter page. Get a note from him second day of our campaign saying, hey, WTF, I heard from some people, you didn't show my full review. And we emailed back and forth. I said, look, there was no malintent. This is my rationale why. And he's like, well, I don't want people just watching the end and not getting the whole context. And I was saying, well, I've got the same concern on the other side, that people are going to watch the beginning, but not the end, and not get the whole context. My biggest regret there is I should have done with him what I did with another reviewer after that lesson learned, which I should have reached out to him ahead of time and said, hey, here's my concern. Really love your review. Super thoughtful. Thank you. I really mean it. It's probably the most thoughtful review we have. And check it out, hungergamer.com. Hungry Gamer's YouTube channel. Do you mind if I do the following? I should have done that. And I take a complete ownership of that. That was on me. Lesson learned. I did that with another content creator. I said, look, love your video. I've got like 8 previews already that explain how the game plays. Do you mind if I start yours at this part here, because I really love what you say at this moment? They said no problem, so that's what we ran with. So that was a good learning. The trilogy. All right, let's talk about the trilogy. Oh man, thanks for the question. I love it. If you can't tell, I'm very, very excited. All right, so the trilogy, Cities of Venus. This is going to go beyond a trilogy. Okay, so our plans for this is probably 10 years worth of content. So we're creating the Cities of Venus world, and the very next, Endo Girl's excited too. We got 2 more iterations coming immediately. I'm not sure the order, and so the next kind of big game we do in the Cities of Venus world is called Survivors of Venus. So everyone knows that's been following the campaign. The story of Cities of Venus is, you've lost contact with Earth. You don't know when the last drop is going to come. You're trying to optimize and become self-sustaining before you lose communication with Earth, and you're all on your own. During the game, as you're bidding on different canisters, there's certain canisters that are population boosts. If no one around the table takes that canister, it falls to the surface and it's gone. It's burnt. Miners sending to the surface to mine for Venite. You're burning a resource. That person's a one-way trip. So in this story, there's a lot of people that are lost. The next iteration of the story is, were they lost? Right? That's the question. And the story picks up from the perspective of the miners that are on the surface, where they've detected signals of some of these cryopods that have fallen to the surface that are still intact. So they're survivors. And your goal as a player is to take your mech and explore out and try to find these survivors, right? So we're literally calling it Survivors of Venus. And at the same time, get components to build a ship to then reascend back up to the city with the survivors. And we're doing it as a polyomino game. And I'm working really, really hard right now to try to have a prototype for Protospiel in Toronto in a few weeks. It's not going to be pretty like the other prototypes. Like if you look at, now we've got Time Splicers, which is looking super awesome. It's not going to be pretty like this. It'll literally be like classic kind of print out on paper, cutting out and so forth. But it's going to be polyomino. And Adam and I are so stoked on this. We have landed on something that is, we think, really, really, really unique for a polyomino. I can't say what the unique part is yet, but all I can say is the first iteration of this game was like, yeah, it's okay. It's kind of, there was like this kind of economic piece to it where you're kind of generating minerals, and the more kind of you explore, the more minerals you're generating, and that's kind of your round after round commerce. But it wasn't like the feeling playing the game wasn't, oh man, that was awesome. Let's play another game. Let's do another one. That was awesome. So we broke it back down and rebuilt it up again and put some different mechanisms into it. And now it is super freaking cool. This game now is, I think I might actually enjoy it more than Cities of Venus. I don't know. It is super cool. So that is the sequel to Cities of Venus. The prequel is currently has been designed by Stephen Hill, who's also the rule scrubber on our Kickstarter page, and we give him kudos there. He's created a roll and write, and his rolling write's pretty cool. The way you're choosing from. Best way to describe it is like you're rolling dice, and you're depending on whoever's the in turn order, who's the lead player for that turn. They're taking a die, but then they're taking another die, right? So people are kind of choosing from the dies that are left over. But the roll and write is literally the design of the city, right? So it's a prequel. It's you're as architects, it's called Architects of Venus, are trying to design the optimal ship, right? So the power node, where the power nodes go and so forth. And like most roll and writes, there's like polyomino shapes that you're filling in and so forth to unlock different things for point scoring. So that's the first kind of 3 trilogy that we have. What I'm still trying to figure out is if we take the Architects of Venus and launch it at the same time as Survivors of Venus, and like have it as like an add-on, and then at the same time you can get a big box to hold all 3 games. And if we do that, if we print Architects of Venus, it'll be wipeable boards, right? So again, I'm going to stay consistent, 1 to 6 players, wipeable boards, so we're not killing a lot of paper, and then we can do custom dice and things like that, which I think would be like super cool. The alternative plan that we might do, and maybe we do both, maybe we do one and then come follow up with the other, is because it's about a year and 3 months before we're delivering Cities of Venus, to keep the story alive between now and then, maybe we do a pre-order print and play of Architects of Venus, like 6-7 months in, so people can kind of keep their beaks wet on the story. Welcome, Philip. We're talking shop on games. Any question is fair. We just spent a whole bunch of time talking about the inner workings of our Kickstarter campaign. Literally any question you have about board games or about Kickstarter or Cities of Venus, throw it in the comments. It's a free-for-all. I love it. It's awesome. So that's kind of the plan for those 3. So that's going to take us out for another probably 2.5, 3 years from now. From there, our hope is that we can continue extending the story in other potential genres of games. For me, it'd be kind of cool too. So we'll have kind of this tableau building market one. We'll have a roll and write. We'll have the polyomino game, and maybe we'll look at some other game genres that we can put in there. One thing that I know Adam keeps pushing hard for is he wants to do a dogfights of Venus, where you're literally you have your ship as your base and you're trying to attack the other person and take out their base and things like that. We haven't really done any take that in this world yet, although thanks but no thanks. I mean, that game is entirely take that. I don't know if we want to go down that direction, but certainly there could be something there in terms of there's more stuff in the skies. I think we do in the skies. We've talked about doing some things in orbit around Venus as well. And then it'd be cool to start coming up with things that intersect some of these games. So some of these games intersect with each other. It says, too bad Venus doesn't have a moon. Could have branched that direction. Yeah, that's true. They don't have a moon right now. Interesting to get a little sciencey on you. There's no water in Venus, and I don't think even the cloud makeup allows you to even generate water, so they have to find a way to get water there. One way to do this is to actually capture an asteroid and or comet, probably an asteroid, and put it into orbit around Venus and use that to harvest water. And if they did that, that could be kind of cool. Death Star, that's no moon. That's true. Our Dyson sphere maybe around the planet. Yeah, something like that, or even artificial stations, where stations are battling. So, there's certainly a lot we could do with this story. For me, again, it's we want to try to keep the story rooted somewhat in science, like scientific facts. So I know during the Kickstarter campaign, we had put out to people, say, hey, give us any ideas you have. Give us your creative ideas. No bad idea is a bad idea. And we'll see how many we can integrate. Some of them went down the aliens route, and we won't do aliens. What we would do is maybe bacterial aliens, because there's some theories that there's bacteria that's a microbial life that exists in the clouds of Venus right now, because there's certain compounds they're detecting that's usually only created by organic microbes. So we might do something like that, but we're trying to keep it somewhat rooted in reality wherever we can. David, I don't know about that. I have plenty of bad ideas. That's true. Yeah. There's a common joke. I remember this one, like it was 20 years ago, there's comedians like, no, any idea? No, there no ideas are bad ideas. Then someone throws an idea out and they say, I stand corrected. Yeah, sometimes there are bad ideas, but what I found cool about this was there were some ideas that people came up with where I'm like, okay, not for this game, but there's a nugget in there that's actually got me thinking of something else that would be super awesome for the game. in the sport, I know I've talked about this before, but the sports idea of, hey, should you have some kind of global sports event where the different cities are competing? And I'm like, I don't know how that works. And then I slept on it, and I said to Adam, I go, we should have an event card where everyone takes 5 meeples out of the tray, not off their board, and you take turns rolling, and the first person to get their meeple to actually stand up on his feet, because again, they're not equidistant on all directions, so they're usually going to land on their side, but you get them to land on their feet, gets a bonus 4 mineral points. Not a huge amount, but it's just to kind of bring some levity to the constant pain that this game deals on you. I think it would be kind of cool. David's saying, virus on Venus. Players are doctors, scientists trying to isolate and cure. That's a good idea too. That could actually be a game in itself, quite frankly. Something around almost like a pandemic-esque kind of vibe to within this world of Venus. One of the ideas we had, someone said atmospheric mining. That's something we could do where you're maybe getting 1 mineral point per turn. That'd be kind of cool. Microbes. We do have one right now where there's a microbe outbreak that kills 2 population that you have to take from somewhere on your board. We can do more of that. There was someone came up with they did a typo and they put cuties of Venus instead of cities of Venus. And then there was this thread on our Kickstarter page about cuties of Venus, and okay, maybe we have a pinup calendar, or maybe it's a dating app or something like that on the game, which is kind of funny. Those kind of things, probably not going to integrate, but certainly good conversation for sure. So yeah, it was, it's cool. So, even social deduction, which I know Adam doesn't like social deduction games, but part of my thought would be maybe there's a saboteur on one of the stations, and there's one of the games is based around trying to find out who the saboteur is before the station crashes, right? And I mean, that could be a solo game. We might even do just a solo game specifically for Cities of Venus. Spies on Venus, exactly. And you're saying the chaos that would ensue if isolated cities get some kind of plague. No kidding. Someone actually said pirates. What about pirates? So every one of the ideas we put thought behind, right? We thought, okay, on the surface, maybe not fit, but let's think about it, see if there's a nugget there we can use. Pirates, maybe there's something that allows you to steal resources from another city, right? So again, some people that back Euros or back them specifically because they don't want take that. So I think if we had a card like that, it'd be optional. But that could be kind of cool to allow you to actually, or smuggling. Smuggling is another great one. Yeah. There was another one too that came up where, shamefully in this game, we don't currently have a card that allows you to go through the burn pile and pull out a canister that's been burnt, right? That no one's taken. So we're thinking about maybe having probably like a special ability. Maybe it's an innovation, some kind of a surface drone that can go down the surface and grab one of the burnt canisters and bring it up, and you can grab a canister from the burnt pile in lieu of grabbing one of the ones from the drop. That could be kind of cool. Might be overpowered, so I think one like that, we'd have to balance it by taking the victory points off of it. Otherwise, the person will just pick through the pile and grab the cards with the highest victory points. But I think that's something that should probably be in the game. So lots of variety we can add in different events and things like that. It's cool. It's got me nervous because I got a lot of content to create in the next month. It's a lot, but that's okay. It's exciting at the same time, and this is why we do it, because we love it, right? Recycling isn't pretty, but it is somehow somewhat effective. I agree. It'd be kind of cool too to like having some ways to, I don't know, like maybe if you because right now, if you replace a canister, it burns like you lose a canister that you're replacing, and those victory points are lost. Maybe there's an ability that allows you to capture those victory points so they're not lost. So certain things like that, they're trying to figure out ways to bring people back down from the innovation station, because right now, once they're there for permanent. Well, in end game scoring, you get more points if you have more people in your city, not in the innovation station. So if there's a mechanic or if there's some kind of a card or ability that allows you to shuttle people back, that could be beneficial, because I know there's certain cases when they got lots of people in the innovation station, and then their entire city is decimated, right? And they could use those people back. So we got one mechanic in there through an innovation upgrade. It allows you to recapture people back. But that'd be kind of cool to have an ongoing power where you can pull one person either way. Dave, it could be like a hired scavenger, cost of victory to hire. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Burn a victory point to grab a card. So you have to have a way of keeping track. But that could be kind of cool too. Or swapping, maybe, because you have cards that you will put off to the side that like any immigration upgrades, those go to the side of your board. So you can burn one of those. That's interesting. That could be something we could try to figure out. That's cool. Endo Girl, Animals on Venus, or Animals of Venus. Animals of Venus. That's interesting. That's very interesting. That could be something where you've had, maybe in the future, through bioengineering, they create a certain type of bird that can live in an acidic atmosphere and can sail through the clouds. That'd actually be pretty cool. It's one of those things where you're just like, how far do you let the imagination stretch, right? And I think that there is no shortage of ways we can go. Vagrants of Venus. Yeah, no kidding. Rats on the ship. Rats in the city. That could be one of the games as well. So yeah, we're super excited about it. Well, I got time splicers here. I'm going to show this to you guys. We talked about this a little bit the other day where I was working on the artwork. We moved very fast on this. So we got GameCrafter to crank out some mock-ups for us. So we've got these cards, and so this is like a time jump card. You've got different eras. So this is like the Roman era. This is the Iron Age. This one is the Renaissance. And you'll notice at the top, there's different colors. So there's 4 different timelines. And when you're playing this game, you have ways to jump from timeline to timeline. David's saying last time he saw the digitals. Yeah, you know what is super cool? I brought this to our meetup game night, and it has been very well received. Shockingly, probably one of the most received games we've done yet. Like where people are first playing saying, can I get a copy right now? I love this. So we're probably going to expedite the development on this one. I was planning to have this one like a year and a half out from now, because again, we're always constantly working, forward. But it plays kind of perfectly right now. It really does. It's got a very unique mechanic, like this whole way you're jumping between timelines and collapsing timelines. I haven't seen it in any card game yet that I know of. There's the quantum tunnel that allows you to jump anywhere on the board. It's interesting is here's the Industrial Revolution. If you look at these 2 cards, although they're different timelines, the pictures are ever so slightly different. And our intent was to have each card look like it's the same card on first look, but then when you look closer, it's actually slightly different to represent that you're on a different timeline. Except for the singularity is always the same, because that's where eventually time leads to, and you're trying to basically stop that. So David's saying said after our chat about the use of AI, again, I'm sorry, these words are wrapping, which is crazy. About the use of AI, start to use ChatGPT to bounce your designs off of. ChatGPT is amazing for that too. For brainstorming, it is great. So you could literally say, I haven't done this in a while, but I did this one day. I was having writer's block, and I said, I'm trying to create a game that does, and pick your poison. It could be that, I don't know. Pick a game about soccer. I want to create a game about soccer. How with cards and these kind of components. What are some ideas on how to mechanically make that work? ChatGPT will actually give you some ideas. They're not going to be great ideas yet, but there's enough in there to make you think, oh, I don't like that, but that made me think of something else I could do that I think would be really cool. So as a way to kind of literally bounce ideas off of someone, it's a cool tool that way. So you're saying your 3 rules through it. Really crazy suggestion it gave me to make it smoother. Oh, that's cool. So you put your rules, and you said it's helped clear up some of your ruling and gave ideas and changed the mechanics. Are you using ChatGPT 3.5 or 4? 4 is way more intelligent than 3.5, like crazy intelligent. That's pretty cool. Certainly, if you're trying to figure out how to balance something, I think it could help with that. That's one thing I was thinking about doing, is because we have all of our cards for our games, we have in a grid, and with our point values and so forth. It'd be interesting to upload that chart and say, look for issues with balance. I don't know. It might actually help with something like that. I'm not really sure. You had to read through Clarity. Use 3.5. That's cool. For $20 a month, which is what it costs to get the 4, I highly recommend it. You would be shocked at the difference of what you're going to get with the 4 versus 3.5. 3.5 is good. 4 is bonkers. One of the things I really hate about 3.5 is it kind of caps how much information it's giving to you. You can upload more information into 4. 4, you can hit a button to say keep going, to continue with its response and things like that. It seems to have better insight because it can actually navigate the web, which is really cool. You can use it for programming, which is really, really interesting. So yeah, ChatGPT is it's an interesting tool. It'd be cool to see how people use it for good. I know there's a lot of naysayers out there that are really spewing a lot of hate about using it in graphic design. I'm referring to it as graphic design. I don't like to say art because I do believe it's a graphic design tool. Anybody who doesn't believe that, look at Photoshop. Just recently launched their beta. Their beta includes generative content aware fill. And it is insane what it does. You could literally take a headshot of someone, like cut off at the shoulders, right? Extend the page out, so it's just basically all white around them, and say to Photoshop, fill in the rest of this area based on that mugshot. And it will literally generate that person standing in an office. It'll actually draw their arms, put like clothing on them. They're wearing like jeans, shoes. Like, it is insane what that does. And it's using AI. And so here we are with now a tool that is pretty ubiquitous. Photoshop, right? Most designers are using Photoshop. Even artists that are AI haters are using Photoshop. It'd be interesting on their opinion with Photoshop using AI. So you said you had to read through Clarity 3.5. 3.5 knows how to script in Tabletop Simulator. Ooh. That is cool. That is super cool. So, and you have played it with the Photoshop. Yeah, the Photoshop is cool. So let me jump back to this Tabletop Simulator. I was wondering about that. I got a guy I use for Tabletop Simulator. So if you use a Tabletop Simulator on Cities of Venus, it is it's really good, and everything's automated. Like the drop and everything's automated with the click of a button. And my programmer, his name is Lewin. He does this. He's been working with me for, not with me. I hired him to do batch jobs on contract for the past 3 years. But that's interesting through scripting to do, because I know how you build a script is very finicky in Tabletop Simulator. But I imagine ChatGPT, you can actually ask it to give you step-by-step, paint-by-numbers instructions on how to program that in and where to put the code. That'd be interesting to try. One thing I would like to do is say, forget the forms and videos, just tell it what you are wanting to do, and it will give you a script. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. I mean, we're going far down the rabbit hole now, man. It's ChatGPT. Here's the next thing I would like to try ChatGPT with, and if there's anybody listening, let me know if you've tried this. Is Board Game Arena. Because right now, to get somebody on Board Game Arena to program your game on that platform, which is an open platform, anybody can put their game on there for free. There's no cost. And they'll actually give you can choose one of two options to go. You can either say, hey, I want to have a free license for anybody that wants to play it, and it'll get pushed out to more people for free. Or you can say, no, I want a royalty every time somebody plays the game, and then it goes under the membership area only, right? And I've been wanting to do this with Tanks But No Thanks now for 3 years. I've had 3 different designers say they're going to work with me, and I'm really excited. 2 of them took my money and ran. The third one said they're going to do it for free, and then after I sent them the assets, they're like, oh, well, maybe, I forgot to ask you, do you think you could pay me to do this? And I'm like, oh, I'll tip you after you're done, but I'm not going to pay you ahead of time. You agree to do it for free. Oh, yeah, no problem. And then they ghosted me. So a lot of scam artists on there. So I've been trying to think of maybe trying to find a way to do the programming myself using ChatGPT. I really, really want to get Tanks But No Thanks on there, especially because our next Kickstarter campaign is going to be Tanks But No Thanks 2nd edition. I'm thinking about calling that one Absolute Carnage as the name, but it would be very helpful to get the number of eyeballs that platform gives you on that game, playing that game in a lead up to, excuse me, to launching that Kickstarter. That would be cool. And he got the skull. That's interesting. Yeah, David, if you've got any experience at all in Board Game Arena, they don't know what the code is they use. I'll have to investigate. They actually have a manual that's free to download. That shows exactly what script they use and what the rules are for how things are uploaded and so forth. But yeah, that would be super awesome to kind of get the game on there. I know the more complicated the game is, the tougher it is, because you want to be a rules assist, right? So that's the benefit of using Board Game Arena, is they'll do assist in the rules and make sure everything kind of stays on the rails. The challenge with people I've talked to on Tanks But No Thanks isn't necessarily the movement. The movement's pretty straightforward. It's the bonus cards. The bonus cards will let you do stuff that you can't normally do, right? So you have barriers in the game, for instance. So you can move, but you can't go through barriers. Well, there's actually a card that acts as a bonus power. It's a one-time use that when you play that, it allows you to move over barriers. You can move up to 6 squares away, any direction. So programming that in has been problematic. That's where we've had issues. But the fact that ChatGPT 4 can actually go online and actually do research. I did this with a car. I recently bought a Fiat, like the little mini little cars, and there was 2 that were for sale. One had like 56,000 kilometers. It was a 2013. There's another one that was a 2015, but I had 150,000 kilometers. Hey, Rebecca, welcome. We're just chatting, just free for all. Throw any questions you have in. Love to hear your questions. Talking about Kickstarter, board games. Right now, we're actually talking about AI. I had put in there and said, I'm looking at this 2013. I'm looking at the 2015. 2015 has more kilometers, but it's a newer car. Can you compare and contrast based on the publicly available information on which car should I buy? And ChatGPT goes on, and it's actually, you can see it kind of thinking and looking at the different websites, Car and Auto and all these different magazines. And then it came back with a side-by-side. Here's the pros and cons of each version of the car. Now, Google Bard and these different companies are now starting to build it into their search engines. And I think the classic way of doing search is going to disappear, right? So in the past, you would say, hey, I want to find XYZ, and then you're sent a ton of websites that you don't want, but they're very good at SEO, or they're very good at paying for placements. So you're served 10 different sites before you can get to the site you want. Or maybe you can never even find the site you're looking for. And I think that's where ChatGPT is probably going to bring the most value, is you'll be able to say, this is exactly what I want. Serve up to you on a silver platter exactly what you're looking for. David's saying, whatever you do, don't buy a Chevy Cruze. I made that mistake. It has been dead since February. Believe it or not, I was talking to this one dealer, because my daughter just wrote off her other car. Ironically, the same day we bought the Fiat, because we're trying to have 3 cars so that the family didn't have to swap cars as much. And the Fiat was meant to be like a beater. And I had a Civic. She wrote it off, and knock on wood, thank God she's okay. And so I go back to the same dealer I got the Fiat from. I'm like, look, if you keep an eye out, I'm looking for like a replacement for the Civic. And I kind of like the Civics because they're really good cars. And this one, 180,000 kilometers, no issues at all. And he was trying to push the Chevy Cruze onto me. I'm like, dude, there is no chance in hell I'm taking a Chevy Cruze. Like I need a car that's known for like easily getting to 350,000 kilometers. Like I want a car I'm going to have for like 10 years, right? Like I'm not the kind of guy that just likes to have the newest, flashiest car to kind of show up. Like I want something that gets me from point A to point B. That's all I care about. I'll take any other residual income and I'll put that into board game design and try to crank out some cool games. And David's saying his is in the shop for the last time. You hope. I hope so too, man. Gosh, it really sucks dealing with cars. It is painful. You know what really sucks is dealing with insurance companies. We're dealing with them now too on that car. And I don't know how it is in the States, but in Canada, what's interesting is that the insurance companies will come back and make an say, here's kind of what we're going to pay you as your claim. And they position it as if that's what you're getting. And most people are like, oh, okay, you know, and just, you know, here's my address, send me the check or whatever, you know, or whatever they're going to do. But it's a negotiation. It's an offer. And you don't have to accept it. And it's in your best interest, at least here in Canada, I can't speak for the States, to say, I don't accept your offer. Here's the reasons why I think you've undervalued the vehicle. And I did that because, of course, they lowballed me below replacement value. And I said, hey, if you can find the same car online at the price you're offering right now, then I'll let you guys get that car and just send me that car. And they're like, okay, send us comparables and we'll go back and relook this. But the number of people that just eat it, right? Instead of saying, no, I don't agree with what you got here. So if you're in Canada, again, I'm going to speak for Canada, anytime insurance, any payout, home, auto, whatever it is, you have a claim, treat it as an offer. Like this is what they're hoping you will take, not what the real number is. And you'll be amazed with what you'll get. And you're saying, don't get started on the Chevy Cruze. Yeah, no kidding. How are we doing with this campaign? Where are we at? We're at holy smokes, we're at $127,000. 126. 1,192 backers. I wonder if we're going to hit 136,000. That's the 100 US. That's the magic number that I am praying to the Kickstarter gods that we're going to hit. It's now 10:30. I'm thinking we have a chance of hitting 128 before midnight tonight. I think the UK is probably going to bring in another 3. That brings 131, and then whatever rally we get between 9 a.m. and 12 tomorrow is going to determine what we end. I think it's going to be, I think luck needs to be on our side now for us to hit the 136. But I think we're still in a very strong pole position to end at 130, which is where we thought we're probably going to end. So that's cool. Any other questions on campaigns, guys? We still have some people in the lobby, which is cool. Thanks for sticking with me. If you're YouTube, Instagram, or on TikTok, any question you have about Kickstarter, Tin Robot Games, about what it's like to do Kickstarter campaigns, about what it's like to design games, trials and tribulations on building an audience, trials and tribulations on podcast. If you have questions on how to start a podcast and things like that, love to talk about that. I'm literally here to talk about anything. I've got nothing but time because it's either this or I'm sitting in front of a TV until I'm too tired to stay awake. Otherwise, I'm just going to be staring at this number, seeing how this ticker goes on this campaign page. So throw your questions at me. Love to hear them. Let's do a quick peruse over the campaign page really quick for those who are just joining us. Cities of Venus, the game we're talking about. Oh my God, we just dropped down. Did we? We did. See, this is what I was talking about. This is the emotional turmoil we go through. I was just at 127 like 10 seconds ago. We dropped back down to 127. So that's okay. That'll pop back up. Here's one good learning that I've had during this campaign is if you ask people to come back in, right? So somebody hops out of your campaign and you say, you know what, I'd really love it if you would come back. We got a lot of cool stuff still coming. You're going to help support a independent publisher. 10% will come back consistently every time. I'm going to show you guys the dual layer player boards here really quick. And right there. So this is, on the left is the single layer player board where the meeples are just sitting on top. On the right is the new dual layer player board where you can see these little cool cutouts. And then when you get to the 8th spot, you unlock an innovation. And we just unlocked that today. I'm super, super stoked about those. Can't wait to see it. All right, what's David saying? What helped you decide to have the specific length of campaign? Man, you got some really good questions. Wow, that's another good one. I'm going to answer that question as soon as I give you guys another number really quickly. So I've recovered 22 pledges so far. 22 pledges. So when you do the math, that's like, I think like $3,500 of pledges I've recovered just by asking people to come back. I've sent out 196 direct messages to people asking those questions. The first, I'd say 100 of those, 103 were cut and paste and just changed their name on the front end. Those ones are easy in the first 3 days because it's the same thing for all those people. Hey, if you stay in, you still qualify for that first player mini. And then everyone else is depending on the person. Sometimes you have to tailor them differently. So I just want to get those numbers out there. It is critical if you're running a campaign to reach out to people after they drop out. You can get 10% back. If you're not, you are just throwing money away. Okay, so back to David's question because David is on the ball with amazing questions tonight. Okay. With your campaign, you've got... Oh, you're back to the dollar. That's okay. Hey, I appreciate the pledge, man. If you will up your pledge, what I will say is there is a special incentive coming to people who back a full game during the campaign, but that's all good. I love you, brother. Thank you for the pledge. I really appreciate the support. It helps with our backer count and it helps with the algorithm, so I do not complain about any pledge that I get at all, even a nickel. It gives me a backer, and backer count drives algorithms. So I chose the... it's actually a 28-day campaign, 28.5-day campaign. And we're very specific to why we did this. So, and I'm going to get you, and I see your other question about the pledge. I'll get you on board on the pledge. Don't worry. I'll get there in a second. Most people up until this point have been, up to I'd say the past year, it's always been 30-day campaign. You're doing a full month. That's it. That's kind of the standard. And you started seeing a shift about a year ago where people start saying, well, wait a second, you've got this reverse bell curve, right? You go down to flat where you're trickling along each day, where we're actually doing $1,000 a day. So that's more than a trickle, which I thought was awesome. But I've had campaigns where you're literally going into the negative on some days. And the school of thought was that your first 72 hours and the last 72 hours is going to represent 90% of your campaign. Do you want to go through the emotional turmoil of the 3.5 weeks in between? And so what you start seeing some publishers do is they're saying, no, I'm going to do 3 weeks. I'm going to do at the beginning, I'll do the first week, launch on a Tuesday. I'll have the in-between week. Then the following week is the third week. So I'll have kind of 2 in-between weeks, and then we'll end on the following Tuesday. And for the most part, they're getting 98% of what they'd get if they stretch it over 4 weeks. If you've got an established audience, right? So if you've got a large audience, and I would say Inside Up Games is probably there now, right? So their email list, I believe, is in the tens of thousands now based on Earth. I mean, Earth was $760,000 campaign. They did amazing with that. If you haven't bought a copy of Earth, get it. It is awesome. Awesome game. It is available at retail now. That game really got them their massive list. So every campaign coming after this now kind of snowballs, and they're guaranteed pretty much to get into 6 figures. And in some cases, there looks like they're pretty much can expect to be at least 200,000 for most of their campaigns. So when you have an audience that big going into your campaign, there's really not a big difference between 3 and 4 weeks, right? And when I get to that point, I will probably do 3-week campaigns because it is exhausting, right? I'm going to have a big old nap come tomorrow night. So for this campaign, it was a lot of consultation with BackerKit, and I've talked about this on prior episodes and kind of talked to camera, is I've tried a lot of experimentation. And Endo Girl saying Earth is a great game. It is amazing. I've tried a lot of experimentation on every campaign I've done. I've treated every campaign as learning. What can I learn out of here? So I've used GameFound, right? Did a campaign of GameFound. Day 1, realized I'm not going to make it. I pulled my campaign on day 2. I said, this is crazy. Relaunched on Kickstarter, and we did, we funded. That was on funded in day 1, quite frankly, planting evidence. But I wanted to try it. I've tried different pledge managers. I've tried different marketing companies. I've used Pixated. I've used, I had signed up with GelUp, but then I fired them. Sorry, we broke our contract. And I've used BackerKit. I've also used the actual pledge manager company for pledge managers. I've used CrowdOx. I've tried as many different things. I've launched on Wednesdays to say, I'm not going to launch the same day as everyone else. I want to launch on a day when no one else is launching so that I'm the only news. And what I realize is that things are becoming very formulaic. You have to launch on a Tuesday. School's still out whether you launch at 9 or you launch at noon. 9 o'clock, you're getting people at the beginning of the day, Eastern Standard Time. But you're hoping that people are going to log in to their email on the West Coast, and they've just had 3 hours worth of emails coming into their inbox while they're sleeping. And then by the time they open it, you're hoping they're going to go through all those and get to your email to back you. So on the other hand, you could have the same thing. You launch at noon on Eastern Standard Time on the East Coast, and how many people are like surfing at noon? Not many. It's usually in the morning. So it's trying to figure out what the ideal time is, but it's pretty consistent. Tuesday's the day to launch. Why Tuesdays? I don't think it has anything to do with the day of the week or the weather. I just think that at some point that became the convention, and it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy that now backers have been trained to go on Tuesday to look for the big new campaigns. So now you have to kind of launch on Tuesdays because that's the behavior that's been established. In talking with BackerKit and Chandler and Alex over there, I said, I want to do 4 weeks because, again, the audience isn't large enough, so I need to squeeze every last drop of juice I can out of this lemon. Or I'll call it an orange, not lemon. I mean, it's doing well enough. We can't call it lemon. And so we're going to go 4 weeks. And so we talked. I said, do I go 30 days or do I go like Tuesday to Tuesday? And the feedback from them was it's better to end on the Tuesday because you have all of the traffic for people looking for new Kickstarter campaigns. They're going to be in there. They're going to see you're ending in 24 hours. They'll see you on Kickstarter's page saying ending soon. You're going to have a big wave of hopefully traffic you're going to get that day. I thought we would have more today, quite frankly, than we did, but that's the theory behind that. The reason we then added another half a day was to give us an opportunity to fully exhaust that group, plus get the people from Europe going into the next morning. Because those people sometimes wait till the next morning before they're looking at the big campaign. So like 3 o'clock in the morning tonight is when the UK is going to start kind of going through their emails on campaigns that were just launched today, right? So that was kind of the theory behind why we did that. And I think it worked out. I think it worked out really well. I don't think I would have funded as much if I had done a 3-week campaign. There's no way. Because again, we were doing consistently $1,000 a day. There was, interestingly enough, Sundays and Mondays really suck for Kickstarter campaigns. So I'm going to have to try to think on strategy around those 2 days going forward on other campaigns. But man, we're hitting between, well, not even 1,000 a day. We had many days that we're doing 2,000. So, if I whacked that week, would we have done 2,500, 3,000 a day on those in between days? I don't know if we would have. So I think it was it's planned out well. I think it went the way it kind of should have. So that was that. Who else we got in here? Who else is even still in here? I know we've got David. We've got Endo Girl. There's another person on TikTok. I just don't know because there's so many questions from David. You've literally taken up the entire feed. So you scroll down. It might be Adam. I don't know who's in. Whoever's in, it might be Frisky. Whoever's the other TikToker, drop a little wave. Give us something so we know you're there. So back to your David, why the you're not going to stop either. No, it's good. Yeah. Here's why I think there's value for you in this game. All right. So, and this is straight talk. And again, I recognize that it's a big investment, and if there's anybody is tight for funds, I'd rather them go and spend money on food and utilities and stuff for their family, right? So Kickstarter should be disposable income only. It really should be. If you're backing a game like this, the rationale why you want to back our game is there is a crap load of stuff that we've put into this box. Like, we held back no stops. There is so much stuff here that I couldn't even, like, a retail edition, like one of the reasons why we're not doing a retail, why this edition is not available at retail is because retailers need to buy the game at 50% off. I'm getting close to losing money at that, right? So like I can't even afford that. So do we put this at retail at like $200? Like, now we're way beyond. So there's a lot of value in stuff in this game. The second thing is I spend a lot of time trying to get our components right. So even this, which we've had overwhelming feedback on, where people absolutely love our player boards and saying these are so cool, we're still tweaking, still refining to say, how can we make this even more robust so that it can last even longer. So things like we're looking at doing like linen finish to help with so there's the limit nicks and scratches and help with the sliding. We are considering seeing if we can get to accommodate sleeves. It's not as easy as people think. People are like, oh, just make them sleeves or I'm not going to back you. Okay, well, then I guess you're not going to back us, because it's not like I snap my fingers and like these things, the cards slide in just perfect. To now spacies so sleeves fit in there, I got to make sure that that's not going to impact how the card shows up in the windows, right? Because now the cards are in there slightly different. And two, what makes me most concerned is the card, everything is really compact as it is. If I extend this even by 2 millimeters per where the cards, each spot the cards go into, that is going to make this too wide for my current box, which means I need to make the box wider, which means my shipping cost now goes up. And I've already quoted the shipping cost, which means now I eat that. And that's how people end up going belly up after doing Kickstarter campaigns, because they do stuff outside of the plan that financially hits them hard. So I got to be responsible about that. But we are going to make these windows even more resistant to warping. So if there ever is, like I'm in a basement here where there's moisture. So I mean, I got game components down here that warp. So how do I prevent the warping? Well, one thing we're going to do is we're going to, even if there is warping, that the windows won't warp and impede the card movement and things like that. The fact that we've got a stitched neoprene mat so that mat's going to last forever. All these we want to make is already, and I see you got another question, I'll get there in a second. All of these components we want to make as high quality as possible so that when we come with additional card packs, which we intend to do, and these card packs will ship straight from China, so we can make them as low cost as possible so somebody can refresh their game for the least amount we can do. And if you ship straight from China, you can ship very, very cheaply, especially if they're small boxes. This is something we can hope can stay on the table for years to come. And that when we do get to a second edition of this game, which I'm sure will be coming at some point down the road, we'll do like a reprint and another campaign, that people aren't having to buy the new edition. What they can do is we'll be able to offer them the upgraded components that they can add to this game. So that was all the thought process behind how we created this, to make sure that the quality was there to last. This is paramount to me. It's very, very important. This is why all of our games have spot UV out of the gate, why the inside printing is on all of my games. It's just because I want things to be high quality. I want somebody to look at this and it be a showpiece on the table. Okay, your next question. How would you alter components to meet the retail model? I'll tell you exactly how we're going to do it, because we've already got that mapped out. All right, so for the retail edition, to make this work, getting rid of the mat is gone. We are getting rid of the quad layer player boards, gone. They will be single layer boards that you literally just place your cards on top. right? So people love the sleeve. Guess what? You're going to be able to use your sleeves there because you're just laying your cards on top, and you have to keep moving your meeples on and off. Because right now these boards, if you have meeples on there, I can slide a card in and out, and the meeples don't even move because there's a little tray that's built on the top. That's the fourth layer. Single layer on the retail version. The mini player boards, single layer. So the dual layer was announced for this game, single layer in the retail version. There's no mechs, there's no minis. That's all gone. Likely no trays. So the resource trays are probably going to be gone as well. So we're looking at gems, meeples, and cards, and single layer boards. That will be the retail version. That'll allow us to get down to the pricing we need to get to, probably around $50, quite frankly, to make it work at retail. With that, one thing we are looking at doing, because again, we love this mechanic with this mech, and again, I'll show Megan's lovely painted mech that she did. But right now, it's got, you put your V-knot in there, you take the dice out, you roll it, put the dice back, you take the V-knot, and you burn it to the general supply. So it's a mechanism to allow you to not mess up the sequence you're doing mining, because again, games can end where people are only 1 point apart, and if you forgot that I burned somebody or not burned somebody, it could be a difference between whether you won the game or not. And people aren't malicious when they do that. It's just it's easy to forget. Oh, did I rolled, but I can't remember if I, because you constantly have pieces coming on and off your board, right? So did I give that resource to pay for that roll? So we're working on a version of this mini player board, which will be about 50% taller. And on the top will be, the top half will be the International Innovation Station where you place your meeples. And again, it'll just be like, I don't know, maybe we put a hole so that they don't slide off and they can just drop them, but it'll be single layer. And on the bottom will be a picture of a mech. And there'll be a spot for you to put your V-knot, and then a spot to take the dice from, and then put it back. So we still want to do that mechanic, because I think it's important for people to play the game properly. So that's one thing we're gonna do for the retail version, but that's the retail version. And again, I had 2 more retailers today reach out saying, and I saw another email come through, I think that's probably gonna be another retailer. Hey, we'd like to get this game in our store. It looks really awesome. Do you have a retail pledge level, or how can I buy this as a retailer? And my answer is the same to all of them. 1 to 4 player game, it's 110, or it's the 1 to 6 player for 150 or 140 or whatever the pledge is. I forgot my own things here. Is it 140 or 150? It's one. Good God, I should have this memorized. 140. 140. There's no retailer discount. Like this game is not. We're not offering it to retailers to sell. And that comes from my own frustrations with Kickstarters, because I'm a big backer of games myself. I back a lot of games. And it drives me bananas. And it's usually with the larger publishers, is you'll back the campaign. You're waiting. You've paid the shipping cost to get it to you. Maybe you get whatever the special components are. But then your local friendly game store, your FLGs, they've got a pre-order of the Kickstarter version of the game. And I can just go and pick it up. And I get that game cheaper there than getting on Kickstarter. And I can get it when it's ready. I don't have to tie my money up ahead of time. So this was something that I really wanted to make sure that when we say we're not making this game that you see here available at retail, is that we're serious. This game is not available at retail. Can you get it from us at a con? Probably. We're going to be at Origins. People can pre-order there from us as well. But we do intend to increase the pricing so that the people that backed it on Kickstarter feel like they got value, so that they don't have a buddy saying, hey, I just got this at a local game con, or I got this off of the Tin Robot Game website for cheaper than you paid. That's not going to happen. We're gonna jack the price up, and it's just out of principle. And I've done this with even my other games. Pricing integrity is key. So anytime I'm selling my game on Amazon, I'm selling it at the MSRP. And usually you can get my game cheaper from someone besides me, because I don't like to bastardize my own price. And that's the kind of the game of whack-a-mole that you have to play, is trying to get to each of the people that are bastardizing your price, and hopefully they'll agree to, let's try to respect the minimized advertised price. right, that you publish, but not everybody does that. So that's kind of frustrating. I'm going to switch gears really quick, talk really quick on Catnip Auction House. A little plug on this. Not sure if anybody saw my update the other day, but this guy is going to be going to Origins. So we've got samples been printed. Longpack did this. They're being assembled as we speak. Probably be on a boat next week, as well as a plane, because we've got a bunch of people that pre-ordered this off our website already. If you use code MEOW, you can get 20% off before June 15th, I believe. And this is a party auction bidding game, which is super awesome. We love it. One thing I was really bummed about when I opened up this box, so again, lots of cool stuff in here. Again, another example of inside lid printing, is the bowl is cracked. So I've been going back and forth with the Longpack on this, saying, like, dudes, this is concerning. And they're like, oh, don't worry, don't be concerned, it'll be fine. And I'm like, okay, but this one wasn't fine. And they're like, oh, but don't worry, we've done drop tests, it's fine, it's not gonna break. I'm like, but this one broke. Right? So I've got a problem with that. This is not good. Like, guys, I can't have people pinging me saying I got a broken bowl. What gives? So we're going back and forth on this. They've assured me that this is an earlier batch that were more brittle. We'll see. But the deal I'll make with Longpack is if I get more than 2 calls of broken bowls arriving when people open their games, I will no longer be using Longpack. So that's kind of where we're at with those guys. So I'm hopefully they're doing bubble wrap right now just to get a little more protection, which is good. But other than the bowl, man, did this game ever turn out well. And again, we got Spot UV on, is it on the side suit? No, just on the front. If you can see this. So this is like a matte finish, but the reflection you're seeing is just on Catnip Auction House. How cool is that? Again, this is done by Reed Muscola. He is a super talented game designer. He did Vigilante, is it Vigilante? Yeah, Vigilante, which is a kind of really heavy social deduction game. And he's got a sequel coming out. I've talked about it on this chat before too. And yeah, this is a game where it had a different name. It was about shoes and stuff, but I reskinned it as cats. Where it didn't really fit his brand. So he's like, I can't put this on my brand. It doesn't really fit Paranoia Rising. But he looks at me, he's like, fits your brand though. So we agreed to do this game together, and this is coming out soon. What's got me really excited is I had a great chat today with one of my colleagues out of Montreal, who works with mainland China and works with the Chinese Kickstarter. And we've agreed to work together on both Catnip Auction House as well as Time Splicers, and we're going to do Chinese Kickstarter this coming year. And what's super exciting about that is the kind of volume they do is like 10 times what we do here. And again, the margins are a lot slimmer, but I think we can do it on these 2 games because, again, they're card games, so you can get the price down. But yeah, that was a very cool discussion we had this afternoon. So that's kind of my first localization agreement that we have verbal right now. We're going to do the paperwork tomorrow. And looking for more localization deals. So I'm hoping that, I know Bridge Distribution, they do localization in the States. I'm hoping to work with them on maybe Cities of Venus. We'll see. I started creating the Cities of Venus retail version myself, just in anticipation if I couldn't get localization partners on board, that I would just do it and send it out and maybe do a small run for those who were really excited about the campaign but just couldn't afford it or couldn't get in on the premium edition. At least there's something out there for people to play and enjoy. So so that was the cool news today. That's the big thing that came up. Other than that, man, holy cow, we've got how many hours are we here? We're coming up on 15 hours left. We're back up to 127,000. And let me see how many people jumped out. Here's an interesting factoid for you. Let me just pull open my... I can't screen share this one just for privacy's sake, because again, people's actual user handles are here. But I'm going to read off the numbers. So we're at 1,193 backers right now. So we're coming in quickly on 1,200. So how many people jumped out? I knew some jumped out earlier because we went up and went back down. So I've lost... Oh, I only lost 2. No, I lost 1. 1 backer. Well, that's not so bad. So we went over 127 and 1 person jumped out. And this is a day 1 backer too. That's the one that stings. When you've got a day 1 backer that's followed you this entire journey, and then right at the last day, it jumps out. That sucks. I'm going to see if I can get them back. We'll see. Oh, I convinced you for the base game. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Make sure you tag me, David, in send me a DM so I got it, and give me your Kickstarter handle. Just because you've been a good sport in all these lives, I'm gonna make sure that we put something a little something extra in for you. I'm sure you'll be happy. But I do appreciate your questions and your time, and you've been very generous with your time for TikTok. This is like gotta be like a world record, the amount of time somebody's actually stayed on one feed. Because it's usually 5 seconds, right? So I think you've been with us here for a good hour, so thank you. Oh, that's been awesome. But yeah, DM me. We'll make sure I hook you up. And we got some cool stuff coming. Vivtech just Vivek. I always say Vivtech. It's Vivek. I apologize. Did we lose you, David? It says you just joined. Did you bounce and then come back in? What happened? Oh, I think you probably just went off to send me a DM. Maybe that's what happened. Welcome, Vivek. We're just doing chats. We're just doing free for all. Anything you want to chat about: Kickstarter, board game design, publishing, building an audience. Literally anything to do with board games. Hit us with your questions. Love to help answer them. We've been just doing I should start calling these shop talk. That's what I should be calling, because we're just talking shop, which is cool. I love talking shop, which is awesome. So if you have any questions, anything you want to know, anything you want us to cover, drop it in the comments, and we will jump into it. And Vivek, I'm doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good. Let us know. Yeah, and I'm free to chat. I'm going to be on here probably till, I'm thinking maybe, unless I run out of things to talk about, probably till 12. And then we'll be exactly 12 hours out before the campaign's done. I don't know if you're following the campaign today, Vivek, but we're at $127,000 funded, so well on our way to our predicted 130. I think we're going to fall shy of what my hopes and dreams were, which was 136, which is 100 US, which gets me to the 6-figure club. But I think... certainly there's enough learning on this campaign. I think we built enough of an audience on this one that I think we'll get to the 6-figure club on Survivors of Venus, the sequel to this game. Not so sure on Tanks But No Thanks. Oh, that's awesome. Tanks But No Thanks. I don't know if anybody... I know Endo Girl, who's in here, has played Tanks But No Thanks. I don't know if either of you guys have played Tanks But No Thanks. It is a blast. It is absolute if you like Take That games, it is carnage from the first time somebody starts rolling. Like you are, everybody has a tank battalion. You've got 3 bases, and you just have to wipe everyone else off the board. That's the objective of the game. You do have a mission card that everybody gets at the beginning. It's an early victory determination, and if you can hit that objective, then you present it, and it's an instant win. But they're kind of difficult to get. And then everyone has a bonus power that's different, right? So, and each bonus power has like a counter bonus power out there, and it's a one-time use, so you got to be very strategic when you use it. But it's a lot of fun, this game. And so I'm doing a follow-up to this. This is the very first game we did. This is a game I designed 30 years ago, and then dusted off based on the advice of my younger brother and design partner Adam, and put on Kickstarter 3.5 years ago. And that started this whole journey. So I'm very thankful for that. I love Viv. Oh, Nice Girls is dope. We're going to do a second edition of Nice Girls. I'll talk about the second edition of Nice Girls in a second too. I mean, you can give me your thoughts. So on Tanks But No Thanks, the idea, I'm taking all the learning I had. One of the biggest learnings I had, quite frankly, as we were talking about this earlier, David, was that I was very naive when I did my first campaign, where I assumed that I need to stay true to what I originally created versus creating something that would be better suited to my audience. So the battle map is like a classical kind of cartographer's map that's kind of watermarked in the background, and then it's got a grid with colors, alternating colors. Like if you're the red side, you've got red and white kind of checker pattern, right? Kind of almost like a chessboard. And now that we've had the experience, that was not the greatest idea, because it looks very much like an abstract game and looks like something from the 80s and 90s. So we've updated that, and it's now got a desert landscape map where the grid is more the grid is now the watermark, right? So it's more about the map. We're upgrading, even that we don't show online because we're still working on it, but we have like little when we come up the beach on Saving Private Ryan, you got those kind of cross metal, they call them hedgehogs, which kind of stop the tanks and the boats from going too far up on the beach. Those will be our barriers. So we'll have like little minis of those on the board to act as the barriers. We have on the flip side for the 3-player version. Right now, people have to kind of have this kind of MacGyvered setup so that you have kind of equidistant between 3 players, but really one person's at a disadvantage because it's 3 people on a square board. With the flip side of the new board, so it'll be desert on one side, you flip it over and it'll be like a field, like you'd see kind of going through like Germany. And then on that side, we use hexagons. And it's hex-based movement, and then that gets us exactly equidistant between the 3 players. So 2 and 4 on one side, 3-player on the other, and also solo on the other side. So on the other side where we have the solo mode, it's very much to defend the tower, right? And I have not won it yet, so I might have to tweak the rules to make it easier because it's super hard. But you just have wave after wave of tanks coming in, and you have to try to anticipate and try to get to them before they get to you. There's an Autonoma deck that we've added for that controls how those tanks move. And then more powers that we've upgraded the graphics, so like the actual weapons cases actually look like a weapons case on the back and front, which is cool for your bonus powers. Again, I didn't know any better when I first did the game, and I assumed that if we had the same back on all cards, that'd be one sheet and it'd be cheaper. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought that. It's not cheaper. You can have 50 different backs on your cards. It's just based on your sheet size, and they just lay out the sheet so that they print the one side and they print the other. So now we've got the mission cards are in kind of the secret envelope, right? It says top secret mission, and then your bonus power cards are in the weapons cases, which look really cool. Endo Girl says, love that you always add solo. Yeah, solos are important. Ever since COVID, I mean, the solo market is massive, right? So where I can, we're even going to do solo for Time Splicers. There's going to be solo pretty much in everything we do. Vivek saying, do the other games will be available as add-ons in the Pledge Manager? Short answer is no, and here's why. It is super hard to do that unless I've got stock of each game in Europe as well as in Canada and the US. However, my understanding is BackerKit may have the ability to allow you to regionalize, in which case we may do that. If I can regionalize and just say for the US, here's the add-ons for the US specifically, I will do that. I literally have a massive skid here in Canada that we're shipping probably on Friday, and it's going to go down to our Bridge Distribution Warehouse down there. They'll give us more stock for Origins, so I'm going to bring Nutty Squirrels Origins as well. And I left very little stock here in Canada because I found that stock here is not moving as fast as it moves in the States, and stock that's not moving is cash flow that's tied up. I can reach out to you privately. I live around Barrie. Oh, I live around Barrie. Dude, if you live around Barrie, I will hand deliver you a game. No problem. And we do cash, like whatever. Like that is easy as pie. The Tanks but no thanks. There's only 40 copies left worldwide. The game did very well. Like after we did that campaign, we didn't have a lot of backers. We actually put our own money in to push us over the line so we could, get that across the finish line. It was our first campaign. But we made 1,000 games, and I mean, it's sold out worldwide, right? We've got literally 40 copies left here in Canada. I didn't even send any to the States just because we only have the 40 copies. And I was hoping to save most of those for reviewers because it'll be easier for me to get GameCrafter to send me boards, because I can get the actual new boards made in GameCrafter and then send these copies with the new boards, new cards to reviewers to review. And I'll pick some select reviewers for that. And yeah, dude, you want to do board game night? Let me know. I'm in. I'm all about board game nights. We got tons that go around the area. We just did one in Alliston recently too, which is really awesome. Yeah, so that's the plan, is that we're going to do a second edition of Tanks but no thanks, based on the kind of games, and this is kind of part of the strategy that we had for Cities of Venus, is knowing it's the type of game is it would do well on Kickstarter, just because of the, again, sci-fi, the fact that it's a Euro, medium to lightweight Euro. Tanks but no thanks, to take that, they don't do as well on Kickstarter. I think with the improved graphics, certainly employing a lot of the pre-marketing I did on Cities of Venus and a lot of the learning I've had, I'm going to employ on that. I think we can probably safely get to 60,000 on that one. I think that one we can get to 60,000. I don't want to say no problem because that's a little bit conceited. But again, it gets down to the math. I think the math on that one says it's about 60,000. I don't want to be under any kind of illusion that's going to cross six figures. You never know. Sometimes things just blow up and you get lucky. But the type of game versus what does well on Kickstarter, there's a smaller group that likes those types of games. So I think that one would be good for about 60 grand, which is more than enough to get that reprinted. That one we will definitely make sure we have available for retail. And I'll have to think of some cool stuff to do specifically for Kickstarter. Originally on that, we were wanting to do metal tanks. Again, how naive I was, because the cost of metal tanks is crazy. Not only that, your shipping cost goes through the roof as well, because you're adding a crap ton of weight to your box. So probably won't do that. One thing I have looked at, I might do for this campaign, is people keep asking us, do you do different tanks? So either A, could the 4 different players be 4 different types of tanks? Or could we do, each player has 5 tanks and the 5 tanks are different types of tanks? If I was going to do one of those two, I would have each player would have the same 5 tanks, but each of the 5 tanks would be different, because there is one bonus power where you are, will be in a reprint. Oh wait, the reprint is, I mean, I'll tell you again about the reprint in a second. So the there's a bonus card where you have to with the single tank, you have to take out 3 enemy tanks to get an instant win, or 4 enemy tanks to get an instant win. And it's an honor system. You have to track the tank. Much harder to do when all the tanks look the same. The counter to that is per mini. Now, granted, these are much smaller, so I might be able to get a better cost. But I'm probably looking at another $4,000 in molds. Easy. Minimum. US. Right now, you're looking at about $2,500 in molds per mini. Like, so on Cities of Venus, we got $7,000 in $3,300 in molds. We're at $7,000 in molds for that first player marker in the mechs, US. Right, so you start gobbling up the money really quick in cost. So tanks but no thanks, if I can get away with it. We're gonna do the hedgehogs, so I'm gonna talk to our manufacturer, but I'm hoping we can get unique molds for that, because if we can, I think we can make that look even cooler. Okay, so for the reprint of so are you asking, Vivek, the reprint for Tanks but no thanks, or one of the other games? If you're asking about the Tanks but no thanks, the reprint that we're going to do with the Kickstarter here is going to be 4-player on one side. Can't import from China to low down the cost. Well, everything is already coming from China. Like, all games are made in China. Even the molds and so forth are made in China. So these are the costs in China. The molds are $3,300. Yeah, so you're asking about the Tanks but no thanks. Tanks but no thanks reprint. dual layer player board. So one side will be desert landscape, 4 players. The other side will be three player, and the solo mode on the other side, which is more of a field landscape. New artwork on the cards to better differentiate the weapons or bonus powers are in weapons cases versus the missions are in envelopes that say secret mission. We're going to have hedgehogs, so actually minis. Instead of right now we've got these like wood octagons that act as barriers, we're going to have like the hedgehogs like coming up the beach on Saving Private Ryan. We're looking at doing new molds for the tanks so that each player has 5 different looking tanks, so it's easier to track which tank is which. And then probably more powers, more bonus missions, as well as an autonomous deck for the solo mission. So that's kind of what this reprint second edition we're doing on Kickstarter is going to be. And I think it's going to be awesome. I absolutely love that game. I have trouble winning the game, to be honest, because people usually come after me and this is one little thing I find funny in the industry, is people always want to take out their creator first. And I take that with a badge of honor. That's awesome, because then I can sit back and watch people have fun with the game. But I've got like a 20% success rate on games I play. Even Cities of Venus. I've been a little bit better at Cities of Venus. I'm at about a 40%. Because people will, it's tougher because there's no take that in that. But any games we have take that, I'm the first person people target, like every single time. And that's cool. I love it. Yeah, it is. Vivek's just saying that's cool as the second print. Yeah, I think it is super cool how it's going to turn out. So Nutty Scrolls: The Oakwood Forest. So maybe let's talk about what our plans are in the next kind of our rollout schedule. So after Cities of Venus, this fall, looking to do second edition Tanks But No Thanks. I'm thinking of actually giving it a second name, so calling it Tanks But No Thanks Carnage, or some kind of name to differentiate it. Adam's saying we're just, he wants us to get to 128, and we are not even, I don't think we're close there yet. Yeah, still 127,257. We might get a rally soon, but yeah, we're not going to hit 128 tonight. Well, maybe we will hit 128 tonight. We'll see. So we're going to do Tanks But No Thanks in the fall. Then we're looking at potentially doing Nutty Scrolls second edition. So it's kind of a reprint, but there'll be more stuff in the game for next spring. That'll be the big Kickstarter campaign next. So this time next year, it'll be Nutty Scrolls: The Oakwood Forest. And the idea right now is that we're looking at potentially calling it Burrows. So having the tree, which will have also a 3-dimensional tree you'll build up in the center of the board. So kind of like Everdale has that tree you build that gives a good table presence. We're going to do something similar to that. I have one. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, David's saying he can count on his 2 hands how many games he owns that he won. How many of his own games he's won. Yeah, it's true. It's tough to win at your own games. But that's part of the fun, and I think that's why we love it. So Nutty Scrolls: The Oakwood Forest will have the tree that's built in the center. And then we're also looking at, we're torn between having, instead of having branches that are on the board like it is right now, like you're building out kind of the branch of the tree, actually have those be the burrows that you dig through. Thinking of that, or you might have some kind of thing in between the branches, and it might be better to do it in between the branches so we're able to utilize our existing artwork. I'm praying that we can get Mitch Deslep back on. Vivek's saying yeah, Everdale for sure. Absolutely. That's what we're thinking, that tree in the center. I think it'll just make it look cool. And we can easily fit into our current box. So I don't think we need to change our current box size. Plastic acorns will come in the box. So it was an add-on for the last campaign. So we own those molds now. So plastic acorns will be in the box for every game as a standard component. Mitch Deslep, who did all the artwork, and it's cool. He's the creative director for Magic School Bus here in Canada, the cartoon. He's got a whole team of creative people underneath him that do that. And then in his spare time, he likes to draw and do it. And so that's the guy I hired to do Nutty Scrolls: The Oakwood Forest. But he's a busy dude, and he really puts a lot of thought into quality. So I don't know if he would be able to do it in time. That's the only challenge. But I really don't want to bring another artist in either, because you always run the risk of not having the artwork kind of match stylistically. So we're going to start those discussions soon, see if we can get Mitch to Slep back. But that's the idea, is that we have Night Scrolls, the Elkwood Forest, and then we've got the kind of the burrows as the extension with the tree in the center. So again, table presence, which I think will look awesome. And then that one, I think we might. Part of me wants to include sleeves, but not everyone's a sleever. But definitely we'll make the sleeves more available. So we had sleeves in the last campaign. A lot of people took them as an add-on. We'll do the same thing for this one. Then after Nutty Squirrels, the Elkwood Forest, potentially next summer, we're looking at doing the small box Kickstarter campaign. If Kickstarter lets us, because sometimes they don't like you to do campaigns too close together. But Team No Sleeve. It's funny, the sleevers, though, are very passionate and quite demanding. I'm actually surprised. Yeah. We call them the sleevers. Vivek, do you work with same or different artists for each game? That's an excellent question. I'm going to answer that question in 1 second. So just the last thing we're looking at doing. So next summer is looking at doing a small box campaign. So in that would be Catnip Auction House. We'll have Hamsters vs. Hippos, small box edition, Planting Evidence, Queen of Scots, and then Time Splicer. So we're planning on having 6 small box games that if you get them all, you get them all for one price, or you can buy them individually, right? And the more games you buy, the more savings you get. So that's kind of what we intend for next summer. That'll allow us to then get that pledge level up, because again, as we said about an hour and a half ago, and this thing is you have to get your pledge level up because your acquisition cost is about $17 a person. So when you're selling a $30 game, it doesn't make economic sense. You really can't do any marketing if you want to make money. So you got to get that pledge level up. So that's how we're planning on doing that with the small box. So we've got this kind of mapped out for the next couple of years. So that's the next one question. Do we use the same or different artists for each game? So far, I've used a different artist on every single game. Every single game. For Tanks But No Thanks, I did the graphic design on that, so any of the things inside the box was me. I'm not a graphic designer, but I'm proficient enough that I can do stuff, right? Like Cities of Venus, for instance. I didn't do the artwork of this, but I can say I did a lot of the Photoshop to make this fit this die line and create the die lines for this, and then some of the iconography and placement things. I can do things like that, right? Card layouts and things like this. But I used for the cover of Tanks But No Thanks, that was a Shutterstock image, so it was a licensed image. It just looks cool, so I licensed that image. Queen of Scots, I hired a Swedish artist to do that. She literally painted 8.5 by 11 pictures, and I think she used part of it was, I can't tell if it's fully digital painting. I think some of it was actual physical painting that then she scanned. But she did it in such high resolution that you can actually see reflections in the eyeballs of some of the characters in that game. And then we shrunk it down to card size. For Nutty Squirrels, as it says, Mitch Slep, he's a Canadian artist. Hamsters vs. Hippos, that was, I can't remember his name. Oh, I love the art style. That's cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. That one, I could give you a little Easter egg on this one in a second. Oh, what was the artist name on that one? I can't remember his name. He was based out of Colombia. I just found him through one of the Facebook forums. This is what I do often is I'll go on, there's a Facebook forum called, I think it's called Illustrators and Artists for board games. And I'll post in there, hey, I'm looking for an illustrator and artist. DM me if you're interested. You will get 14 people reaching out to you saying, hey, I do artwork. Here's my portfolio. Of those, you'll find that probably 6 of them are just what I call art farms. So they're in a country where they just have a bank of artists. They have they're like more of like a broker. So I usually discard those. And then there'll be like 6, and of the 6, there'll be probably 3 that are just aren't even close to what you're looking for. And there's usually get down to like 2 that are like, okay, between these 2, now it gets down to which one's got the better price. And most of them are willing to work with you on price, right? And so I did the same thing with, what was the one? So Nutty Squirrels, Hamster vs. Hippos. Oh, I did the same thing for Cities of Venus. Daniel Cunha, that's how I found him. He's in Brazil. Catnip Auction House, this game, quite candidly, Hate to say it for the AI haters out there. I have a graphic designer that I use out of Vancouver, Jay Bassan. He is a buddy of mine who helps me outside of like board gaming and some of our business stuff. He's a creative director. He's just a really smart guy. So he helps with the outer box designs of all of our games. So it's minimalistic design. He did that for Time Splice, basically all the games. Planting Evidence, same thing. The inside of this one, we used AI art, and I call it, again, I won't call it AI art. It's more like a AI graphic design because it's comps, right? So I took, for each image of a cat in here, it's like 6 different images that through Photoshop, I'm cutting and pasting eyeballs and whiskers to make basically the cat that I want, right? So, but that was AI assisted, right? And I did that with the AI and did that over several months. Planting Evidence was all stock imagery, right? So all the weapons and so forth in that game, fingerprints and so forth, is me just going through licensing images off of Shutterstock and then photoshopping to clean them up, and then Illustrator to add overlays and things like that. And Rack Up is a version of Queen of Scots. That one, same thing, Shutterstock images for all the animals on the inside, graphical overlays, and then the outer box, again, with the help of a graphic designer. And that's pretty much all the games, I think. We got 9 titles in total. I think I covered them all off. You kind of forget some of the games you have. But anyway, so yeah, of all of our games, different artists for every one. Not by choice, necessarily. It just kind of worked out that way. Mitch, quite frankly, I reached out to Mitch for Hamsters vs. Hippos and said, hey, Mitch, I got this other game that I'm working on. Can you help me with it? And he took a pass. He's like, dude, this past summer has been insane. I'm getting married this year. I am, and then work, I just took a promotion. So I literally have no time. And I don't want you to feel that I'm slowing you down because I know how fast you have to move. I can't even touch this for like 3/4 of a year. So that's why I put it out and found David Kudo. So here's the Easter egg on Hamsters vs. Hippos. If you look at lanterns, the box for lanterns, the layout of Hamsters vs. Hippos is almost identical. So I love the lanterns boxes, playing a lot of lanterns at the time, and I like this idea of how you've got the lanterns going in the water into the distance and then going towards the pagoda in the distance. So when I did the first mock-up of that, I took that box and I overlaid a hippopotamus over top of the pagoda at the back. And then I put lily pads on top of each of the lanterns coming into the foreground. And then I put little hamsters running towards the pagoda. And that was a mock-up that I sent to the artist and said, this is kind of what I'm looking for. Now can you make it in your style, make it good? And then he just took it to another level. Like if you look at that box of the hippo, and actually look at the water, you can actually see the hippo in the water, like under the water. You can see his body, like the image of his body in the water, which is really cool. I'm fortunate that I've got enough skills in Photoshop and Illustrator that I can do mock-ups for people to try to say, here's kind of what I'm looking for. Can you? And we did Seas Venus. I used Wombly on my phone to get a couple images of just floating platforms, and then retoned it to make the clouds pink, and then kind of cut and paste to try to make it kind of the shape I wanted, then sent that to Daniel and said, here's an idea of what I'm trying to do. And then he's like, okay, I understand. And then he went and drew his version of the box you see behind me. And this is like, I think, version 9. So we went back and forth. He did sketches at first until we're kind of on the same page, and then filled in the details. And then I did some more edits. And then I even sometimes take their images into Photoshop and still move some things around because I want it kind of a little bit different than they did it. And sometimes that's just faster than going back and started saying, trying to describe with words what you want to change. So I do that with a lot of games. Oh, you love the nod to lanterns, says David. Yeah, get the box, take a look at it. It's funny. It's cool. Every game I do when I design, the first thing I do in a prototype is I'll try to create an image for the box. And I have a white box that I have off to the side, and I can just stick over top of it. And it's a standard box. It's about this yay big, this size, but it can hold my components for my game. And I'll put a stand-in title and a stand-in kind of image. Because for me, I need to kind of visualize the story of the game. And it helps me kind of start saying, okay, how is this going to come together? How visually, stylistically are we going to kind of construct this, right? So that when I send it to the artist, I can articulate kind of what our vision is. And you know, it really helps. What I would say, if there's any, if you don't know how to use Photoshop, it's a good thing to learn. It takes time in practice, but there's a lot of tutorials online on how to do simple things and start off doing little things. But man, is it ever a handy tool to help bridge that communication with people, because you can describe all you want, but sometimes they just don't get it. And sometimes you're dealing with people in different languages. So the artist for Hamsters vs. Hippos didn't speak English. So we're communicating, and we're both using Google Translate to try to understand what the other person's saying. And it turned out pretty awesome. Use GIMP. Oh my God. Let me tell you this. Okay, so my kid was taking one of her courses, mandatory, one of her electives she had to take, and they were teaching GIMP. And she brought home for the weekend and said, "Hey, Dad, can you help me with this? I'm trying to figure this out." And so I went on to try to figure out how to help her with it. That's one of the worst photo editing programs on the planet. It is so user unfriendly that you will switch over to Photoshop, you will find instantaneous. The ease of using the program is like 20% easier immediately, without even knowing how to use Photoshop, just using Photoshop versus GIMP. GIMP is brutal, and how they do the layering, how layers stick and they automatically merge without you telling it to merge. Photoshop, you can create as many layers as you want. Drag layers around, drag and drop, click, moving things around. Now with the AI that allows it to do generative fill, that's super cool, right? So yeah, Megan's saying she uses GIMP as well. Yeah, GIMP is horrible. If you can get even like a bootleg version of Photoshop, do it. It is so much easier just to even be able to draw things. Like you can use the paintbrush and draw things, right? You can use a little lasso and like actually draw around something and just grab that and hit cut like a normal program would. Like most programs know how to do, you know, your Control C, Control V, cut, paste. It can even do it like that, right? So changing tonality and things like that. Like you're not having to go into histograms and all this kind of crap. Like there's much easier ways to do it in Photoshop. I would recommend Photoshop to anybody. It is amazing. Illustrator is a little more refined. So one thing I don't like using, and a lot of designers do this, is especially illustrators will use Photoshop for illustration, which is fine. But when you do your layout, you want to put your layout in either InDesign or you want to do it in Illustrator, because those two programs are vectorized, right? So they're much more sharp. Your images are going to be much sharper than using Photoshop. You get some blurriness and things like that. Things aren't just perfect. Lines aren't as straight in Photoshop, whereas if you can use Illustrator or InDesign, definitely those two will give you kind of a much cleaner output. Cities of Venus, where are we at? We're at 127,397. So golden question, are we going to hit 128 before midnight? I don't know. It's not looking positive, my friends. Did we lose anybody in the past hour? I don't think so. Oh, we did. We lost 3 people. Oh, Ross still jumped out. So I've got one of these backers that they've dropped out. I've got them back in. A few days later, they drop back out again. I get them back in, and they just dropped out again. So I'll reach out to them again and say, Ross, come on, man. Need you to stick with us. That's okay. Don't hate the player, hate the game. And I've had some people I've reached out to as well where I've said, you know, hey, I'd love to have you back. And they just said, hey, it's not you, love the game. It's financial right now. We're just in between, you know, paycheck, whatever. Right then I'm always like, I back right off. You know what? Totally get it. No problem. Again, discretionary spend. You should never be buying a board game if you can't pay your rent, right? So, you know, this is here for the hobby and to help people love the hobby. And, you know, for those that can't, then there'll be other opportunities maybe down the road to partake in games. I still haven't seen any of my games in secondhand stores yet. I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think that's going to be fun. Like the first day I go into like a Goodwill or into like one of these store, I don't know what they call them in the States, but here they call them Goodwill stores or Salvation Army stores, to actually look and see like a thanks but no thanks on the counter. That would be awesome to say, wow, that game actually went through a full life cycle Now it's on a shelf again. That would be diamonds. I forget who I was talking to. I think it was maybe Mondo Davis was saying that, because he goes to a lot of these kind of secondhand stores and looks for whatever you can find. There's a name of these stores. I can't remember. I'm sure somebody's got a name of these stores. But it's basically where people drop their trash and gets sorted through, and then it gets put on a shelf to sell. Well, there's a name for these stores. I can't remember what they're called. Anyways, we call them Goodwill here in Canada. But he goes to a lot of these looking for special finds, and then he puts them on his TikTok channel. And it's cool. And he was talking about how cool it might be to see like your game at the end of its life cycle kind of having new life showing up on a shelf somewhere. I think that'd be awesome. Who else has joined us? Is this Endo Girl come back? Is that what happened? We got Dave, we got Endo, we got Vivek still here. And then who's here from YouTube? Someone's here from YouTube. Might be Adam. I gotta scroll down. What else you guys want to talk about? Give me another question. Open book. Full transparency. Anything you want to know. As long as I'm not breaking confidence in somebody, I'll let you literally answer any question you have. David's saying it shows someone cares enough about it to not throw it away. That's true. I like to harvest games for components. So I've started building, I've got these organization trays that I picked up at the local dollar store. They have like little pockets. And I'm using those now to organize components that I'm of games. So if I have got a game, I won't throw it in the garbage. I used to harvest the board, because this is back before the new quad fold boards that everything is now square. But like even 10 years ago, things were still rectangle. I would take a board from an old game and just spray paint it, and then put a sticker on top. And I've got a game like that still on my shelf. The first game I ever created called Corp War, and it's like an anti-Monopoly. And I took it wasn't a Monopoly, it was another board. It wasn't Monopoly, but I painted that board black and then put my squares going around the board on that board. And so that's what I try to do now too, is especially like any kind of tokens, pawns, meeples, dice, put them in a tray, because there's always something I'm working on where I can use components. Here's an example on Time Splicers. These ones I just recently ordered from GameCrafter. But I have these same things that I got at the last Protospiel I was at. Is they were given, there's a whole table full of little components. And there's going to be one here in a couple weeks as well. I'm going to do the same thing, as I'll go to the table and I'll look for any kind of component I can find where there's a whole bunch of one common component. And just grab them, put them in a bag. They're all donated from GameCrafter and from Print and Play. Because you never know when you're going to have a game, right? Here's another component. This is cool. So I don't even know what game this is from. But it was a Punch-Out. And in the Punch-Out, there's this little, and it's red on one side, yellow on the other side. The game had you had to knock a hole out, right? And for this, I forget what the piece was. And this was the hole. So instead of throwing these in the garbage, I collected them all and put them in a bag. And said, you know what? I'm going to use them for something. Well, in this game, when you freeze the timeline, so you can throw down a freeze timeline card and freeze the timeline, so when you hop off, it doesn't automatically collapse, because if you leave a timeline empty, it'll automatically collapse. Allows you to hop off, and then when you hop back in, that hourglass comes off. But we came into the situation where multiple players might want to try to freeze that timeline for the same reason, or you lose track who put that card down. Well, these little markers we're now using to mark your color of whether that's your actual card that you've played. Again, simple little component that should have went in the garbage, was in my organization tray, used it for the game box. David saying he has so many components salvaged. Your wife says it's a problem. Is there an AA for designers? Yeah, it's called Protospiel. That's AA for designers. Yeah, you're just around a bunch of other addicts. Some stuff you got to throw out. I'm almost there on some replacement parts that I have for some of my games. So I've got Hamsters vs. Hippos. There was a couple tiles that I replaced in some people's games, so I had to open up a game to do that, and I'm sitting on the remainder of the tiles. Probably going to give that 3 more months, and then I'm going to have to toss those just because they're too bulky. They're taking up too much space. I got a crap ton of extra tanks left over from Tanks But No Thanks too that I'll probably donate those to the GameCrafter and let them use them. Vivek saying, what's your current favorite and all-time favorite board game? Oh man, that's a hard question. The first part is very easy. My favorite is Rolling Heights. Currently, that is coming out more than anything, and I don't know if you played Rolling Heights, but it's so awesome. It's so awesome. I love it. A buddy of mine did the Kickstarter, and he brought it to the meetup in I think it was in January. Right away, I went online to see where I could get it, and of course, it was a Kickstarter. But again, the local game store, I did a pre-order, and they said we're taking pre-orders. I did a pre-order, and I got the retail version of the game, which the only difference is it's missing like the little gorilla you can throw at the buildings at the end to knock them over, which is kind of like a silly little add-on game, but doesn't really add anything to the game. That was a Kickstarter exclusive, so I essentially have the same thing that he's got, and I've played that. I can't even remember how many times now. I keep pulling it out. I love it. I keep losing, but I love it. It's so awesome. My second, my favorite game of all time. Oh man, that is a tough one. I'm just looking at my game shelf here. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna throw a couple out there. I'm gonna throw a few out. So my favorite, I think, is, and it might even been even David on one of our last things that was saying a reprint is out on this now, is Acquire. Acquire has still got to be one of those evergreens that I just love it. It's awesome, never gets old. It's fantastic. I would say it's probably my favorite consistent. I haven't pulled it out a lot lately, but it's one of those ones that I'm never unhappy. It's never a situation where I'm not excited to play it. But I'm gonna throw a couple other games in here too of different genres. I think that Secret Hitler is probably my favorite social deduction game. That game it's got to be the top of the pack. I mean, of course, you got other social deduction games like Love Letter and what's the other one, Avalon or whatever. But it is probably the one from a party standpoint that can get the most people, strangers, playing a game together. So if I bring that to a meetup, because it plays so many people, you can get a lot of people playing all at once. And I love playing every time. I know Megan's saying Splendor right now. I'm going to say Splendor and Azul and Patchwork are each tied, probably for the third in terms of casual gateway games. Those three I put all together. So Azul, I play with my father. It's his favorite game. So every time I go play games with him, I'll play a game of Azul with him and one of my brothers as well. It's an evergreen. Splendor is certainly there as well. And then Patchwork, I think, is for a two-player game. It's a great intimate game, right? Where you're just playing two people and just having a casual coffee, tea, drink, whatever, and just talking about life and casually playing a game. So those three I put together. So I know that wasn't my one favorite of all time, but that's kind of like the three I want to give. So I'd probably say Acquire is at the top of that. Secret Hitler for sure in terms of social deduction, and then those other three I think are clumped together. David's saying he enjoys Patchwork and Lost Cities. Totally different types, but both good. Lost Cities. I don't know if I played Lost Cities. Is Lost Cities a... is there more to that title, or is it just called Lost Cities? I don't know that one. I'm just checking our funding right now, too. We're stalled at 127,398. 10 minutes to go. We're probably going to end at 127.5. Not a bad end to the day. I can't complain about that. We've got 15 hours to go, too. Still might get the European Rally. European Rally is probably going to bring that up to 130, 131. Then in the morning, probably another 2,000. We're going to probably end at 133 is my guess. Just called Lost Cities. I've never played Lost Cities. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to investigate that one. It sounds awesome. Lost Cities. Yeah, that sounds super cool. Other than that, I think I think some other notable mentions would be Favor the Pharaoh in terms of dice drafting game. It is a little bit of an obscure title. It's tougher to get it. It took me a while to actually get a copy of it. Oh, it's a Knizia game. No kidding. Okay, I'll have to check that out. I played the other one. There's the Reiner one where it's like a you're planting like a garden or something like that. That was a cool game. I enjoyed that one. Yeah, I'll have to check that one. I was a little disappointed in Ra. That's another Reiner Knizia game. Although I got the Holy Shit package. Like, so the one I have is like the one that just 25th Century Games just did. Where it's like the most overproduced game I've ever seen. Like, just super thick, chunky wood components, like 4-color printing on both sides. It's just, this guy went like beyond what you should do on a, like, metal coins for the cartouches. Oh, Solitaire. Okay, that's cool. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, Megan says she liked the Raw. I like it. Don't get me wrong. I liked the game, but I didn't love the game. And I think people out there know what I'm talking about when you say, you know, there's games you're like, yeah, I like that game. Where games are just like, I can't wait to play it. Like Rolling Heights, I love. I love that game. Raw, I'm like, yeah, it's good, but I don't like. I'm not like chomping at the bit to play it again. Check out Summer Camp. It's current favorite deck building game. 23 minutes. Oh, that sounds cool. I like deck builders. I still, again, Dominion is the original Dominion, not the extent just the original Dominion is still, I think, one of those ones that is it's a perfect game. It's a perfect game. It's great. Don't know if it's one of my all-time favorites, but certainly it's got to be up there in terms of a game I really enjoy. Another obscure game I love is, I will say, like I did last time, Crave by Black Forest. Yeah, this is Crave by Black Forest. Yeah, I'll check it out. I'll get another copy. Adam, I know Adam's looking for a copy, so we'll get him one. I'm going to write it down this time just so I don't forget. I think I wrote it down last time too. Crave by Black Forest Studios. The other one I'd say is Vivid. Anybody played Vivid Memories? That was by Floodgate Games. This is a Kickstarter I backed 2 years ago now. Oh, it's so much fun. It's a weird game. It's got a very Azul feel to it when you first look at it, because it's like you're placing these tiles and they're like little shards of memory that you're placing on the board. And each person has a player board, and their dual layer player boards look really cool, and you're kind of forming these little kind of memories with these little memory fragments, and then you're making neural connections, and that's how you're scoring points. And then how you're collecting those fragments of memories is there's like a central market of cards where you're taking the fragments of memories off these cards, which have like actual memories on them. And if you can like empty a card, then you get to take that card as a memory, and then that becomes part of your board and can unlock certain abilities to then unlock more memories. And it's just a beautifully done game. And that's where we got the idea for doing the inbox neoprene mat. It was the first time I'd seen a neoprene mat that high quality in the actual game box. And right away, Adam and I are like, that's what we got to do for Cities of Venus. Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. Ticket to Ride is obviously another evergreen. Ticket to Ride probably is the one game I would say that is an evergreen that I've not got sick of. Right? Because even Azul, sometimes I'm just like, oh my God. Somebody wants to play Azul. I'm like, can we play something else? Like, man, we always play Azul. But there's never been a time someone's like, can we play Ticket to Ride? Where I'm like, let's do it. I love it. A legacy Ticket to Ride. How the heck do you play Legacy Ticket to Ride? That's interesting. I know there was that one Kickstarter about half a year ago, and maybe it was even last year, where they were doing metal tank. It was just the trains, metal trains, to add to your Ticket to Ride game, and it was like $20 a set of trains, crazy expensive, but it looked super cool. I almost backed it. Yeah, it's cool. And I've got a buddy who's got like all the expansions, like the different like Europe and things like that for Ticket to Ride. I just like the classic, right? The classic US based Ticket to Ride I think is awesome. Ticket Ride Legacy Legends of the West. Well, that sounds interesting. What do you guys what's your favorite role dice manipulation game? Whether it be a press your luck like a zombie dice or things like that, or like what are your favorite dice manipulation games? I'd be interested to hear what people have to say. I love dice manipulation games. Still, Favor of the Pharaoh is my favorite. Any new Kickstarter game are currently eyeing on? Oh, craps. That's funny. Yeah, actually, I gotta be honest. I've been like so in the zone on this campaign. I haven't had a chance to follow too many. I have been watching Sigil, just because I follow Pine Island Games with Jasper. So I'm following that campaign just to see how it does. I think they're sitting at about 20,000 right now. He's probably going to finish this campaign around 40,000. I don't know if I'll back it because it's like got like magic decks and things. Megan would probably like this. Endo Girl, you'd love this game. Not really my style of game, but I'm watching it. But other than that, there's nothing right now that I'm in the queue to back, so to speak. Now, starting next week, that's going to change because I've been banking kind of my episodes for the podcast. So we did Restoration Games last week, but the episode actually drops tomorrow. So I'll be looking for a guest for next week, and more times than not, I'll find a guest that's got a super cool game, and then I end up just backing it. And yeah, nothing right now, but certainly I'm not shy to say when there is a game that I'm interested in. I'm trying to think the last game I backed. Let me just check here. Mycelium. Yeah, Megan's checking out Mycelium. She was saying that that looks really cool. It did look cool. Forge, which is from Fundamental Games, again, another Canadian that I love to support. So I know not much about the game, but I backed it because it was Wes Woodbury. Hollywood 1947. So that's from our friends over at what the hell is that company called? I've talked to so many. Travis Hancock. I've talked to so many people now. I'm starting to blur. That one looked kind of cool. That one's kind of more of a social deduction game. And Cosmo Octopus, I've got that on the way. 14 Frantic Minutes by Joe Slack. We played that at Breakout Con. And of course I sucked at it. But we got 3 copies. It's because I had to get a copy for my dad. Sigil's at 17,075 15 days ago. I see it in Canadian dollars. That's a challenge, right? So you're seeing US. I see in Canadian. So in Canada, it's like at 20. Yeah, 15 days ago. So he'll probably double that, right? He'll probably end up in US dollars. He'll probably be at like 35. It's not bad. What I would say about Jasper is he doesn't cheap out on the development side. So he'll go and pay for like the video. He'll go and like I think he had like Kagan do his video, right? Productions. That's not cheap. He'll hire like a US based artist. Which again, nothing wrong with US based artists, but they're doing their art and they're charging prices based on their cost of living. Artists in other countries are going to charge based on their cost of living. So doesn't mean they're bad artists. It just means that what they charge is going to be less. And so you got to really watch your dollars. You got to bootstrap wherever you can, right? Because it's so important to pump as much as you can into marketing dollars. Question about Joe. What sealed the deal to bring him on the binge? That's a great question. I got a lot of respect for Joe Slack. He is... I'm trying not to hesitate for any kind of dramatic reason here. I'm just trying to think how best to articulate this. He is he is really good at game design. Like he's really good at game design. Not only is he good at game design, so much so that he actually teaches, right? He's got a book on game design. He's taught at local universities game design, and he knows a lot of people. And so those two things, the knowledge base, as well as the Rolodex he had of potential guests he could bring on, was why I approached him and said, "Hey, Joe, I'm looking to add more talent onto the team here." And I'd reached out to a few individuals. I'm not going to say who else I reached out to. But he's like, yeah, he goes, this could be good. He goes, I can't do, because I was being stupid, right? I was doing like literally 2 episodes a week, which is an insane amount of time to do a podcast. It's like, it was too much. And so that's why I wanted more people. He's like, I can't do like 4 episodes a month. So, cause I was wanting to I'll do one and like you do one, right? He's like, I can't. I go, okay, think about it. Even if you want to come on and do guest spots from time to time, you pick when you want, when you can fit it in. I'll slide your episodes in between my episodes. I'll book around you. And he's like, okay, that'll work. I can fit that in my schedule. So that's why I brought him on. He's a great guy. He's just a super cool dude. He's in charge of the Pro Spiel here in Toronto. So he runs that. He gives a lot back to the community. He came to Barrie and did a talk. I did the same group I did last week at the local developer night at Freaky Wizards Cafe up by the college. I was there and I did like a 2-hour talk. He was there like the month before, and he was doing a presentation on game design, things like that. So it was a good fit. Nothing against what the podcast was before, but he was a great ad. I agree. It is a better podcast with him. Here's one thing I was hoping to get as well. Not only is it, I needed to start freeing up some time so I could work on some of these campaigns, because again, these are very, very labor intensive. But I wanted to bring another voice on so that, it didn't get stale. Like I want to kind of mix and match different. My idea was actually to have like 3, 4, 5 special guests. So it's constantly different, different voices coming in with different ways they approach their guests. And he goes very, very deep in certain ways, which I think is really good. So I thought that would keep the podcast fresh by bringing these different voices in. I did extend it out to Mike, who's the producer, and said, hey, like, do you want to start doing some of the interviews? Because, he interviewed me for some episodes, and I thought he did a great job. His day job, right, he's an accountant, is, so there's at least a third of the year, he's radio silent. Like, he's just doing taxes, right? So he's not available. And he's more kind of the behind the scenes guy, not as much wanting to be kind of out front, because it's a bit intimidating, right? Like doing this face to camera. Now I've been talking for what, like 3 hours, like just talking, right? Nonstop. Thank God you've got some questions coming in, but it's not easy kind of keeping it going, right? Where people can just passively listen and you're kind of creating content on the go. And especially when you go live and you've got, like I did the one episode last week, I think it was Restoration Games was the one before that. It was one of the two. There was like 300, it was one before Restoration Games, because actually the audio wasn't even working and we got it fixed for Restoration Games. There's like 300 people listening live. Like that's a bit intimidating, right? So it's not for everybody. And so it's kind of finding the right personalities. What I'd like to do is I'm hoping to find someone in Europe. I want to get one of my colleagues in Europe, and I've been kind of scouting. That I think would be cool. I think it'll bring more publishers, designers, content creators from that side of the pond in as guests. So, and then bring the audience that comes with them. We're listened to in 26 countries right now, which is not too shabby. I think that's pretty awesome. But I think that, it'd be good to kind of get those numbers up even more. And again, I think that would kind of add a cool vibe. I've been listening to other podcasts. I constantly listen to Level Up Podcast, Gamecasters, Crowdfunding Nerds. These are all ones I'll listen to like I'm at the gym or when I'm driving in my car. And they all have got different hooks. And what I really like about all of those, quite frankly, is the banter that they have back and forth with the other hosts. Granted, every single one of those are pre-recorded, right? So they pre-record them and then they edit them down, and then that's the episode that gets published. For those of you that listen to the Board Game Binge podcast, it's live, right? So, it's welcome to Board Game Binge, the place. We're bringing you bite-sized binge of board game content. I'm your host, James. Here's who we're talking to. Boom, the person's on camera, and we start chatting. No script, and often they'll send me a question ahead of time saying, you haven't sent me like a list of questions or anything. Like, I said, I don't have a list. I don't know. We're just going to start talking. I'm a curious guy. I'm just going to start. I'm sure you know what your life story is. It's going to be about that, right? So I'm just going to start probing you based on some of the research I've done on you, and we're going to just have a fireside chat. And then about halfway through, you're going to start plugging your stuff. And I'm going to ask you about questions about your stuff. And then at the end, we're going to kind of talk about what's coming up next and what you got coming down the pipe. But that's about it. Everything else is kind of a free flow. And, I like that dynamic because it keeps you on your toes, right? I mean, there's you get what's coming out, right? And so there's no way really to edit around it. There's been a couple that audio issues and things like that. I've had to take the backup recording and remap it on top of the video. That happens from time to time when the equipment craps out. But I add the front and I add the back end music. Everything goes as it is. So David's saying, you should listen to Board Game Snobs. They're a hoot to listen to. I go past there laughing. I'll check them out. Board Game Snobs. There's so many podcasts out there. Board Game Snobs. I'll download that one. Board Game. It's a Board Game Lunch. Is it called Board Game Lunch? That's another good one. He's a good dude. I had him on our podcast. Can't remember his name, but his you can tell he loves board games because he is just geeking out the whole time he's talking to his guests, and he gets some pretty cool guests on his show. And mostly banter and a little bit about games. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because there's different styles of podcasts out there, and I like the banter as long as it's kind of condensed so we can get to the meat. There are some, I'm not going to say specific ones, but there's some where it's like all banter and like an hour and a half of banter, and then there's like little snippets of game in there. And for those ones, I'm like, I kind of want to get to the meat. Yeah, I mean, because I listen to Smartless. Smartless is a great banter podcast with celebrities and things like that. I listen to Fly on a Wall. I listen to, the Office Ladies is another great one, right? But the board game ones, I want to get to some of the meat, my personal style. But I'll check this one out. I mean, it sounds like it'd be fun. It sounds like it'd be a hoot. We'll see how it goes. We lost Vivek. Vivek is gone. All right, it's 12 o'clock. They can be a lot. Both hosts have very strong opinions. Yeah, Gamecasters is kind of that way too. Gamecasters is like Spitting Chicklets meets. Yeah, I'm not sure if you listen to Spitting Chicklets hockey podcast, but it's a bit raunchy and so forth. It's like cross between that and board games. It's interesting. But all right, folks, 12 o'clock. My throat's getting sore. Let's get the final call here on the what we funded at. So as of midnight, we were at 127,449. I can't be sad with that. If we talk about the numbers, we are still not. Hey, David, anytime. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the questions. It definitely gives me something to feed off of, which is awesome. In terms of the final projection, I think we're going to end around 132. That's my guess. I'm going to pray tonight. I'm going to say my little prayers. Please let us end at 136 so I get the 6-figure US club. I think realistically, based on the math, we're at 132. So thank you so much for your support, guys. Thanks for supporting the campaign. I'll probably do a recap tomorrow night, just going through kind of final lessons learned and my thank yous for everybody. But thanks a million, and everybody, you take care. All right. See you on the flippity flip.